Chapter 3:18. The shocking stairway to heaven and the gate of immortality appeared in front of the world. No one knew who was about to undergo the tribulation, and no one knew why this phenomenon appeared in front of the world and was seen by everyone. Was it because the person undergoing the tribulation was too heaven-defying? Did the heavens want to use the world to eliminate him? Or was it because of some other reason? No one knew. Yu, who was in the extreme heaven realm, also did not know that his stairway to heaven and the gate of immortality had been seen by everyone. If he knew that the world would see him undergoing the tribulation in the extreme heaven realm, would he still take the risk to undergo the tribulation in the extreme heaven realm? Taking a deep breath, Yu stepped onto the stairway to heaven. The instant he stepped onto the stairway to heaven, the heavens and earth changed color. Terrifying tribulation lightning bolts filled with destructive auras appeared out of thin air and landed on the stairway to heaven, drowning Yu within. At the same time, everyone saw that the stairway to heaven that was hundreds of miles wide was completely covered by lightning. Even though they could not feel the power of the lightning, the cultivators in the world of cultivation could feel the terror of the lightning. This person is really too heaven-defying. Even the heavens are jealous of him. When they saw that the stairway to heaven was drowned by the tribulation lightning, everyone sighed in their hearts. Some were shocked, some were regretful, and some were gloating. There were all kinds of emotions. Normally, although the tribulation lightning was unceasing, it would fall from the sky and would not drown the stairway to heaven. But now, except for the tribulation lightning that fell from the sky, the entire stairway to heaven was filled with tribulation lightning. As long as one stepped onto the stairway to heaven, they would be drowned by the tribulation lightning. Crackle, Yu was instantly annihilated by the tribulation lightning. In an instant, the tribulation lightning madly rushed toward Yu from all directions. Feeling the lethality of the tribulation lightning, Yu smiled faintly. This level of tribulation lightning is not even enough to temper the body. Looking at the seemingly endless stairway to heaven, Yu took a step forward and rushed up. Hey, someone is undergoing the tribulation. Quick, take a look at who that person is. Almost at the same time, when Yu rushed up the stairway to heaven, his figure was also seen by the world. Although the tribulation lightning is terrifying, this person doesn't seem to be afraid of it at all, someone said in shock. This was because they saw the person undergoing the heavenly tribulation slowly walking up the stairway to heaven as if he was taking a stroll. The seemingly terrifying tribulation lightning did not seem to have any effect at all. It could not even slow down Yu's footsteps. Don't tell me that the tribulation lightning only has a shape and no attack power. Seeing Yu walking forward step by step, the same thought appeared in the minds of many cultivators. Leader's body is too strong. If it were us, I'm afraid we would have been blasted to smithereens long ago. Inside the extreme celestial realm, 100,000 members of chaos watched as Yu slowly ascended the stairway to heaven unscathed. They were all shocked by Yu's strength. All the members of chaos were using the tribulation lightning to temper their bodies. Their bodies were 10 times, or even dozens of times, stronger than cultivators of the same realm. However, compared to Yu, they realized that their bodies, which they were so proud of, were nothing in front of Yu. If they climbed the stairway to heaven, they would have been killed by the tribulation lightning. Only those who were near the stairway to heaven knew how terrifying the tribulation lightning was. It was not like what the world saw, where it seemed to have no power. Yu's body had reached the immortal weapon level and had been attacked by the tribulation lightning. Therefore, the tribulation lightning of the stairway to heaven was really useless to him. He walked up the stairway to heaven with a relaxed expression. Not long after, he finally reached the center of the stairway to heaven. In less than half a day, he had already walked half of the stairway to heaven. As long as he finished the rest of the stairway to heaven, he would be able to successfully step on the stairway to heaven and reach the immortal gate. That person is Yu. It's actually Yu. Am I seeing things? At this moment, someone finally saw Murong-yu clearly. Murong-yu, that's impossible, right? In an instant, those who knew Murong-yu recognized his identity. However, no one believed that he was Murong-yu. However, even though they told themselves that they did not believe that the person undergoing the tribulation was not Murong-yu, they vaguely believed that the person undergoing the tribulation was Murong-yu. Perhaps only Murong-yu can be so monstrous. Little Ape King said with a bitter smile. On top of Qingxian Peak in the hidden fairy valley, everyone looked at Murong-yu, who was undergoing the tribulation in the sky. They were all nervous but very happy. They all knew the relationship between Murong-yu and Qingxian Peak. This was especially true for Jiang Lu and Chang Lu. At this moment, they were very nervous and excited, as if they were the ones undergoing the tribulation. Only Zhao Jiqing stood alone on top of Qingxian Peak. She looked at Murong-yu, who was undergoing the tribulation, with a strange light in her eyes. I knew that you weren't a piece of trash. I knew that you would amaze the world with one brilliant feat. You have given me too many surprises all these years. I hope that in the future, you will give me even more surprises. Zhao Jiqing and Murong-yu were childhood sweethearts. When they were young, everyone said that Murong-yu was a piece of trash and looked down on Murong-yu. However, Zhao Jiqing always believed that Murong-yu was not a piece of trash. He finally had the chance to soar to the sky. Reality proved that Zhao Jiqing was right. After Murong-yu's transformation overnight, he created a lot of surprises. Along the way, Murong-yu created many miracles. At this moment, Murong-yu was about to create a miracle that had never been seen before. I believe that you will be able to break open the immortal gate, Zhao Jiqing said in her heart. Her two small fists were tightly clenched. She was clearly nervous. If Murong-yu knew what Zhao Jiqing was thinking, he would probably stumble and fall down from the Sky Ascension stairway. That thick and incomparably huge immortal gate. Him wanted to open, it was like an ant trying to shake a tree. He had no confidence at all. However, Zhao Jiqing was full of confidence in him. How could he endure this? These tribulation lightning can already temper the body. Murong-yu, who was halfway up the Sky Ascension stairway, paused his body. He finally stopped. I thought that he was going to go all the way to the end of the Sky Ascension stairway. Seeing Murong-yu stop, many people let out a sigh of relief. If Murong-yu really walked to the end of the Sky Ascension stairway in one breath, it would be really shocking. Maybe he will be smashed into pieces by these tribulation lightning later. It's best if he is completely destroyed. This was the thought of those who had a grudge against Murong-yu. Those who were friendly with Murong-yu became nervous. It seems that Murong-yu can still continue. Could it be that he is really stopped by the tribulation lightning? Come on. Just as the people were gloating and feeling nervous, Murong-yu moved again. Whoosh! In an instant, countless tribulation lightnings surged like a tide and rushed madly towards Murong-yu. When they came into contact with Murong-yu's body, they were all absorbed by Murong-yu's body. What's going on? Seeing this scene, everyone was dumbfounded. This was tribulation lightning, not spiritual energy. Murong-yu was absorbing the tribulation lightning as if he was absorbing spiritual energy. It was really too shocking. Looking up at the seemingly endless Sky Ascension stairway, Murong-yu smiled. If I use these tribulation lightning to temper my body should be able to reach the level of a second-grade immortal weapon, right? Murong-yu's original intention was to absorb the tribulation lightning into his body and directly temper his body and meridians. However, at this time, he was surprised to find that after the tribulation lightning entered his body, only a small part of it was used to temper his body. Most of it was absorbed by the Tree of Life. The Tree of Life can absorb tribulation lightning. Murong-yu was stunned for a moment. However, at this time, he saw the power of thunder and lightning being spat out from the Tree of Life. The power of thunder and lightning is at least 100 times purer than the previous tribulation lightning. Moreover, it is not harmful to the body at all. The power of thunder and lightning that flowed out from the Tree of Life was not only 100 times purer, but also harmless. After trying to temper his body with the thunder and lightning, Murong found that the effect was many times better than using thunder and lightning directly to temper his body. Seeing this scene, Murong almost could not help but laugh out loud. Obviously, the Tree of Life had the effect of purifying power. After being purified by the Tree of Life, the power that was purified by the Tree of Life was not harmful to Murong at all. With the Tree of Life, no matter how big the world is, I can do whatever I want. Murong was overjoyed and immediately rushed up the Sky Ascension Stairway. The higher the Sky Ascension Stairway, the more powerful the tribulation lightning was. Since the Tree of Life could purify the power of thunder and lightning, Murong naturally looked for more powerful thunder and lightning to temper. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Although the tribulation lightning was getting more and more powerful, it still could not stop Murong's footsteps. Not long after, Murong had rushed to the 3/4 of the Sky Ascension Stairway. At this point, Murong's body, which was a first-grade immortal artifact, could not bear it anymore. This is my limit. Let's do it here. After pondering for a while, Murong sat cross-legged on the Sky Ascension Stairway and began to temper his body. Seeing this scene, many cultivators could not help but vomit blood. Others who were undergoing the 49 heavenly tribulations could not wait to rush to the end of the Sky Ascension Stairway. Before going to the Gate of Immortality, they did not want to stay on the Sky Ascension Stairway for even a moment. After all, the tribulation lightning on the Sky Ascension Stairway was not fun. It should be known that most of the cultivators' souls were scattered by the tribulation lightning on the Sky Ascension Stairway. They could not be more dead. Others who were undergoing tribulation also wanted to leave the Sky Ascension Stairway as soon as possible, but Murong was sitting cross-legged on the Sky Ascension Stairway. Moreover, looking at his appearance, he seemed to be cultivating. Cultivating on the Sky Ascension Stairway. That was really strange. It was absolutely unprecedented, and there would be no one like him in the future. Chapter 319. Murong started cultivating on the stairway to heaven, causing all the cultivators who saw this to shut their mouths. Each and every one of them had been stimulated by this scene. I really hope the tribulation lightning strikes this bastard to death. Many cultivators cursed Murong. Murong was purely trying to provoke them. This was especially true for those who had risked their lives to overcome their 4 in 9 heavenly tribulation. They felt even more indignant. However, no matter how they thought about it, Murong was still cultivating on the stairway to heaven. One after another, the tribulation lightning was continuously absorbed into Murong's body. They entered his dantian and were absorbed by the Tree of Life. After being purified by the Tree of Life, the tribulation lightning flowed back into Murong's body. One after another, the power of lightning that was 100 times purer tempered Murong's body. Murong could even see his body growing stronger at a speed visible to the naked eye. Time continued to pass. In the blink of an eye, Murong had been cultivating on the stairway to heaven for 3 days. During these 3 days, although he was constantly bombarded by endless lightning, he remained unmoved and unharmed. Crack! Crack! Suddenly, a sound like that of porcelain breaking could be heard from Murong's body. At the same time, a smile appeared on Murong's face. I've finally broken through. My body is now a 2nd-grade immortal artifact. After 3 consecutive days of high intensity, coupled with the power of life and the power of lightning, Murong's body finally broke through again. It broke through from a 1st-grade immortal artifact to a 2nd-grade immortal artifact. Waves of incomparably powerful aura constantly emanated from Murong's body. However, under the terrifying aura of the tribulation lightning, it was suppressed. Other than Murong, no one else had discovered that Murong had made another breakthrough. Murong raised his head to look at the end of the stairway to heaven and said to himself, although the lightning here is strong and can continue tempering the fleshly body, the increase in the strength of the fleshly body is too weak. The tribulation lightning at the end of the stairway to heaven is the strongest. There, I might be able to break through again and reach the level of a grade 3 immortal artifact. Therefore, those cultivators who had been watching Murong-Yu sitting cross-legged finally saw Murong-Yu stand up and walk towards the Heaven Ascension stairs. This time, he should be able to rush to the front of the immortal gate in one go, right? This thought appeared in the minds of many cultivators. F***CK, this bastard is still not dead. There's only one stairway left. I really hope he gets struck to death by lightning when he steps on the last step of the celestial stairway. Murong-Yu seemed to be taking a leisurely stroll. Although the tribulation lightning drowned him, it did not harm him at all. Seeing this scene, the crowd began to feel indignant. Towards Murong-Yu, they were filled with envy, jealousy, and hatred. I really suspect that the tribulation lightning is just a facade. Someone said hatefully. The tribulation lightning looked incomparably powerful and had the power to destroy the heavens and earth. However, it could not do anything to Murong-Yu at all. However, was the tribulation lightning really useless? Was it really just a facade without any power? Even the person who said this did not believe it. That was the tribulation lightning. How could it not be powerful? One had to know that the more heaven-defying an existence was, the more terrifying the power of the tribulation would be when they underwent the tribulation. Murong-Yu's stairway to heaven was 100 miles wide, and the immortal gate was a terrifying 10,000 miles wide. It was obvious that his aptitude was extremely heaven-defying and was more than 10,000 times stronger than an ordinary person. Similarly, the tribulation lightning he had to endure should be 10,000 times stronger than an ordinary person. The reason why Murong-Yu acted as if nothing had happened was because he was powerful and had a strong physical body. Many people understood this point, but after they understood it, they felt even more upset. The more heaven-defying Murong-Yu's performance was, the bigger the gap between them and him. Anyone who saw that the other party was more outstanding than them would be indifferent. Murong-Yu stood on the last step of the stairway to heaven and looked at the immortal gate in front of him. However, he did not take the last step. After my physical body broke through to the second-rank immortal artifact, my strength has doubled again. However, even with my current strength, I'm afraid I can't break open the immortal gate. If I can't break open this damned immortal gate, I'll be laughed at by others. Although I don't need the immortal spiritual energy to refine my physical body, I've already reached this stage. If I can't break open the immortal gate, then I'll be laughed at. After pondering for a while, Murong-Yu continued to think. The tribulation lightning here is very powerful. If I refine my physical body here, I should be able to improve my physical body even further. He sat down cross-legged again. Is he going to continue cultivating? Seeing that Murong-Yu actually sat down on the last step of the stairway to heaven, everyone almost fainted. This guy is really too strong. Boss Murong-Yu is really strong. He's actually cultivating there again and is not afraid of the tribulation lightning. On Qingxian Peak in the hidden fairy valley, Chang Lu staggered and fell to the ground. Then, he said with a bitter smile. Jiang Lu also rolled his eyes. He admired Murong-Yu to the core. Time passed day after day. Murong-Yu sat cross-legged at the end of the stairway to heaven, absorbing the power of the tribulation lightning to refine his physical body. At this time, everyone finally knew that the tribulation lightning had no effect on Murong-Yu. However, they did not disperse. Instead, they kept looking at Murong-Yu from afar. They all wanted to see if Murong-Yu had the ability to break open the huge immortal gate. However, the fact that Murong-Yu was still sitting on the stairway to heaven without moving gave them the urge to curse out loud. As long as the person transcending the tribulation did not leave the stairway to heaven, the tribulation lightning would not dissipate. Because of this, Murong-Yu sat there cross-legged to refine his physical body. Half a month later, Murong-Yu was still cultivating. A month later, Murong-Yu was still cultivating. 2 months. 3 months. Finally, after 3 months, Murong-Yu, who had been sitting cross-legged on the stairway to heaven, finally opened his eyes slowly. I've finally broken through. My physical body is at the level of a grade 3 immortal artifact. Now, I can kill a one-step immortal with just the strength of my physical body. Coupled with my strength, I'm afraid that even a half-step immortal is no match for me. Feeling his powerful strength, Murong Yu could not help but roar. I wonder if my strength will continue to skyrocket after I break open the immortal gate. If it can skyrocket to the strength of an immortal, then it will be really powerful. Murong Yu looked at the huge immortal gate in front of him and finally took a step out. The moment he left the stairway to heaven, the lightning on the stairway to heaven and the tribulation lightning from the sky disappeared at the same time. This proved that Murong Yu's 49 heavenly tribulations were already half completed. As long as an ordinary cultivator broke open the immortal gate, it meant that they had successfully transcended the 49 heavenly tribulations and entered the transformation stage. However, Murong Yu was different from ordinary cultivators. However, as long as he broke open the immortal gate, his realm would also break through to the transformation stage. At that time, Murong Yu's strength would be even more powerful. Is he finally going to break open the immortal gate? Seeing Murong Yu standing in front of the immortal gate, everyone stared at him without blinking. Everyone wanted to see if Murong Yu could break open the immortal gate. I seemed to be a little nervous. As if feeling everyone's gaze, Murong Yu gently exhaled and then fiercely punched the immortal gate. Bang! An earth-shattering sound was heard. The immortal gate did not move, but Murong Yu was forced to take a few steps back by the huge rebound force. His chi and blood were really surging. You don't even know how to move? You don't give me any face? At least give me some face and open a crack, right? Murong Yu was a little depressed. He finally understood what it meant to be an ant trying to shake a tree. He was now an ant trying to shake a tree, somewhat overestimating his own strength. Murong Yu took a deep breath, and the aura on his body began to go wild. 2 hours. Only 2 hours. I must break open this damned immortal gate, even if it's just a crack. Murong Yu had originally decided to break open the entire immortal gate, but after thinking about it, he felt that it was not practical. In the end, he lowered his goal to just a crack. Thousand Army Elephant Fist. Tiger Roar Emperor Fist. Great Vajra Chakra Seal. Murong Yu roared and instantly unleashed all his battle techniques. In an instant, the black primal chaos energy filled the sky. Murong Yu continuously sent out waves of terrifying energy that bombarded the immortal gate, causing it to tremble unceasingly. However, after a round of attacks, the immortal gate remained closed without a crack. So heavy, Murong Yu was enraged. He retreated a few hundred miles, and then the phoenix spear appeared in his hands. The phoenix spear instantly enlarged like a divine mountain. Murong Yu poured all his strength into the spear, then viciously stabbed at the immortal gate. Bang! After an earth-shattering explosion, Murong Yu was violently sent flying. During this process, Murong Yu, whose chi and blood were churning like a tidal wave, finally couldn't help but spit out a mouthful of blood. Murong Yu was actually injured by the immortal gate's rebounding force. One could imagine how violent his attack was. It's open. It's open. A crack has been opened in the immortal gate. At this moment, the extreme celestial realm chaos members below the immortal gate cried out in surprise. Murong Yu wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and looked over. Indeed, there was a crack in the immortal gate. Although it was only a small crack, it was comparable to the size of an ordinary cultivator blasting open a mountain's immortal gate. There's still more than an hour. I like to see if you really can't blast it open completely. Murong Yu made up his mind. Holding the spear in his hand, he viciously smashed it at the immortal gate. He actually wanted to blast open the immortal gate completely. Seeing this scene, everyone was shocked. However, they all stared at the immortal gate without blinking. They also wanted to see if Murong Yu could blast open the immortal gate, or even blast it open completely. Chapter 320. Boom, boom, boom. Murong Yu, who had gone all out, unleashed one ultimate move after another, bombarding the immortal gate and causing it to crack bit by bit. It was as if the immortal door was easier to open after a crack appeared. Under Murong Yu's attacks, a quarter of the immortal door had already cracked. Although it was only a quarter of the immortal door, it was already many times bigger than the immortal door of an ordinary cultivator. In fact, Murong Yu could already feel waves of energy emanating from the immortal door, directly affecting his body. This was the immortal spiritual energy, the heaven and earth spiritual energy of the immortal world. Although Murong Yu's physical body had already reached the level of a third-grade spirit artifact, and he also had the sovereign chaotic celestial body constitution. However, when the immortal spiritual energy acted on his body, Murong Yu could still feel his body transforming, although the speed was extremely slow and almost imperceptible. However, the immortal spiritual energy was still effective on him. Previously, when Murong Yu's physical body had broken through to a third-grade immortal artifact, even a heavenly tribulation at the top of the stairway to heaven could no longer improve his physical body. But now, the immortal spiritual energy was actually effective. This surprised Murong Yu. Since the immortal spiritual energy could continue to improve his physical strength, it was even more important to break open the immortal door. Therefore, Murong Yu attacked the immortal door with all his might. The tree of life within Murong Yu's body began to tremble violently. It absorbed the drifting primal chaos energy from the void and converted it into incomparably pure primal chaos energy. It replenished Murong Yu's dantian and meridians, allowing him to have an endless supply of energy. Dark, godly demon Prajna, with a loud roar, Murong Yu executed the seventh style of the dragon elephant Prajna art. It was the most powerful and also the most exhausting move. Usually, after Murong Yu used this move, the energy in his body would be almost completely depleted. However, after his physical body had reached the level of a third-grade immortal artifact, his meridians had become wider and could contain more energy. Moreover, Murong Yu used all his strength to activate the Tree of Life. Now, his energy could be said to be endless. Even if he continuously used big moves, he could still hold on. Great Vajra, Chakra Seal, Dark Godly Demon Prajna. Under Murong Yu's big move, one of the immortal doors finally opened halfway. Watching Murong Yu crazily bombarding the immortal gate in the sky, every cultivator's jaw dropped. Their eyes were filled with disbelief. Murong Yu had actually blasted half of such a thick and heavy door open. Just the immortal door, by God, knows how many times the immortal door by Murong Yu was opened by ordinary cultivators. Even if Murong Yu was exhausted and unable to continue, he would still be able to ascend and become an immortal. After all, when an immortal door was blasted open, the crack would be more than 2,000 miles long. More than 2,000 miles. This was an extremely vast distance. Immortal by immortal, in other words, there was already a huge crack that was 100,000 miles tall and 2,000 miles wide, constantly spewing out immortal spiritual energy onto Murong Yu's body. In terms of immortal spiritual energy, all the transformation stage cultivators in the immortal world would probably receive less immortal spiritual energy than Murong Yu combined. Even if Murong Yu stopped and didn't cultivate, it wouldn't take long for him to ascend to the immortal world. Envy, jealousy, and hatred. However, Murong Yu still didn't seem satisfied. He continued to attack the immortal door. There's only an hour left. That's too slow. Murong Yu muttered to himself as he looked at the immortal door that he'd only managed to open halfway. If others knew what he was thinking, they would probably rush forward and beat Murong Yu to death. Yin-Yang Cauldron, kill him. Murong Yu retreated a few hundred miles, took out the Yin-Yang Cauldron, and started attacking the immortal door. Under the Yin-Yang Cauldron's attacks, the immortal door began to open quickly. However, it was still too slow. I wonder if the Yin-Yang fire can burn the immortal door? Murong Yu's heart skipped a beat. The Yin-Yang fire could burn anything in the world. Of course, given Murong Yu's strength, the Yin-Yang fire he could summon was only a diluted flame. If it was a pure Yin-Yang fire, it would only be a mere immortal door. With my current strength, I should be able to summon a pure yin-yang fire. Let's give it a try. Morongyu did as he said. He started to summon the yin-yang fire with all his might. Bang! The yin-yang cauldron shook violently. Then, endless yin-yang fire exploded. Under Morongyu's control, the yin-yang fire began to cover the immortal door. Chi-chi! Just as the yin-yang fire touched the immortal door, Morongyu heard the sound of something being corroded. Then he was shocked to see that the incomparably thick immortal door was actually melting under the yin-yang fire. It really works. Ha ha! I'm too talented. Seeing this scene, Morongyu was first shocked. Then he started to laugh wildly in his heart. At the same time, he used all his strength to summon the yin-yang cauldron. More yin-yang fire exploded. The yin-yang fire was even purer and started to burn the immortal door. What is Morongyu doing? Oh my god, he's burning the immortal door? In the beginning, no one knew what Morongyu was going to do. They only saw the burning flames covering the gate of immortality. How can the immortal door be burned so easily? Almost everyone was disdainful. They felt that Morongyu was indulging in fantasy. If the immortal door could be burned so easily, there wouldn't have been people who couldn't ascend for so many years in the cultivation world. However, they were soon dumbfounded. This was because they saw that wherever the flames passed, the gate of immortality began to melt rapidly, revealing large holes. This can't be real, right? Everyone looked at this scene with their mouths agape. They all told themselves in their hearts that this was not real. Morongyu is burning the immortal door. Did you see that? Is that real? Some people didn't believe it and asked the people beside them. Nonsense, how could it be fake? That immortal door can't even withstand a single blow. I wonder what kind of fire is that? It can even burn the immortal door. Damn it, if I had known that the immortal gate could be burned down, I would have burned down the immortal gate when I was undergoing my tribulation back then. I wouldn't have only managed to blast open a small crack. One of the transformation stage cultivators suddenly said regretfully, "Idiot, do you have fire? Even if you have fire, can you burn the immortal door? How can a fire that can burn the immortal door be ordinary fire?" Someone sneered in disdain. That's true. Did you see that? Those flames are coming from the ancient cauldron. It said that these flames have burned many cultivators previously. I didn't expect them to be able to burn the immortal door. It would be great if we could snatch this ancient cauldron. Some people had greedy thoughts. However, they all knew that Morongyu had already grown. Snatching something from him? That was basically impossible. This brat actually burned the immortal door. Isn't he afraid of being punished by the heavens? Seeing this scene, the dozens of immortals were stunned. They were all impressed by Morongyu's audacity. The immortal door was an item from the heavens. Morongyu actually burned this item from the heavens. Was he really not afraid of being punished by the heavens? This ancient cauldron is good stuff. If we can get it. The dozens of immortals' eyes flashed with greed. Yin-yang fire burned the world. Morongyu raised his strength to the maximum. He used all his strength to activate the yin-yang fire and kept burning the immortal door. At this moment, other than the thought of burning these two damned immortal doors, he didn't have any other thoughts. He didn't even think about whether he would be punished by the heavens after destroying the immortal door. He's already burned one immortal door. He's burning the second one. Everyone was already numb to this. World of immortals. Countless immortals stared at the huge, immortal door in the sky. They were all speechless. They all knew that this immortal door was a phenomenon that appeared when a cultivator underwent the 4-9 heavenly tribulations. It was not rare, even in the world of immortals. However, this immortal door was tens of thousands of miles wide. Moreover, it stretched across the sky. Almost everyone in the world of immortals could see it. Just as everyone was wondering who was undergoing the heavenly tribulation to create such a huge immortal door, they realized that this incomparably thick immortal door was actually burning. Under the burning of the unknown flame, it didn't take long for the immortal door to be completely burned down. Yin-yang fire. This phenomenon even alarmed some of the big shots in the world of immortals. When they saw the flames burning the immortal door, some of them even cried out in shock. The yin-yang fire that can burn the world. Investigate. Use all your strength to find out who's undergoing the heavenly tribulation. We must rope them in. If we can't rope them in, then kill them. Orders were passed down in the world of immortals. Therefore, everyone in the world of immortals began to investigate thoroughly. What they didn't expect was that the person undergoing the heavenly tribulation wasn't in the world of immortals, but in the world of cultivators. However, for some reason, Murong Yu's heavenly tribulation could be seen by both the world of cultivators and immortals. Of course, the world of cultivators could see that it was Murong Yu who was undergoing the heavenly tribulation. However, in the world of immortals, they only saw the immortal door being burned down. Murong Yu is nowhere to be seen. Ha! Using fire to burn down an immortal door. Such a magnificent feat is probably unprecedented, right? Murong Yu couldn't help but laugh loudly as he watched the immortal door begin to melt under his own flames. However, at the same time, Murong Yu increased the intensity of his yin-yang fire. Because there wasn't much time left, and because he'd been using the yin-yang fire for a long time, Murong Yu felt that his strength was starting to run out. Even with the Tree of Life, it couldn't really support Murong Yu's consumption of strength endlessly. Unless the Tree of Life continued to grow into a towering tree, it should be enough for Murong Yu to consume. Chapter 321. Under Murong Yu's full power, the yin-yang cauldron exploded with yin-yang fire, covering the remaining immortal door. With Murong Yu's current strength, the yin-yang fire was many times purer than before, and its burning power was even more terrifying. The world only saw the immortal door being covered by the endless yin-yang fire, and the immortal door began to melt in large patches. Boom, accompanied by an earth-shattering explosion. The second immortal door was completely burned by the yin-yang fire. At this point, both immortal doors were completely burned, and the immortal door was completely open. Just as the immortal door was completely burned, the immortal door slowly faded and gradually disappeared. The timing was just right. Murong Yu finally managed to burn the immortal door completely before it disappeared. At the same time, the yin-yang fire also disappeared instantly. The yin-yang cauldron quickly shrunk and entered Murong Yu's body. As for Murong Yu, he staggered and his face turned pale. Obviously, this was because he had used up too much energy. If the immortal door had not been completely burned, Murong Yu would not have been able to continue burning the immortal door. However, he still managed to open the immortal door completely before he was exhausted, becoming the first person in the history of the cultivation world to blast open all the immortal doors. This miracle would probably be recorded in the history of all the major sects and forces in the cultivation world for future generations to worship. Boom! Just as the immortal door disappeared and Murong Yu was about to leave, there was another loud explosion. At this moment, everyone saw a huge black tribulation cloud suddenly appear in the void above Murong Yu's head. Bolts of tribulation lightning were brewing in the tribulation cloud, and an incomparably terrifying pressure was released, shocking everyone in the world. Heavenly tribulation. Seeing this scene, strange thoughts appeared in everyone's mind. Could this be heavenly tribulation? Murong Yu just burned the immortal door, and now he's facing heavenly tribulation? Haha, this must be heavenly tribulation. This guy is too arrogant. He even dared to burn the immortal door. Even heavens can't stand by and want to destroy him. What a pity. Murong Yu is already exhausted. How can he resist this heavenly tribulation? Such a monstrous talent died, just like that. Is it really impossible to grow? Qingxian Peak. When Zhao Jiqing saw the appearance of the heavenly tribulation, her expression changed. Then, she seemed to have thought of something. She just looked at Murong Yu in the void with a determined gaze. Xianhua sect. Yu Mengqing had just come out of seclusion. She had just seen Murong Yu successfully burn down the immortal gate. Just as she was about to rejoice, she saw this scene again. Her expression could not help but turn serious. Big hooligan, I know you'll be fine. You can even burn down the gate of immortality. These heavenly tribulations can't do anything to you. This guy must be envied by the heavens. The little ape king was with the little lion king and the others. Looking at Murong Yu in the sky, they were speechless and worried. Everyone had their own thoughts when they saw the heavenly tribulation. Some were worried, some were gloating, and some couldn't wait for Murong Yu to be killed. There were all kinds of thoughts. However, all of this had nothing to do with Murong Yu. What's going on? Murong Yu actually disappeared? Was he killed by the heavenly tribulation? But I clearly saw that the heavenly tribulation hasn't struck yet. Suddenly, Murong Yu in the void disappeared without a trace. Seeing this, everyone was puzzled. All the major sections. Have you found out where Murong Yu went to transcend the tribulation? Not yet? Trash. Find out as soon as possible. The treasures on him must not fall into the hands of others, especially that yin-yang cauldron. Orders were passed down one after another. The cultivation world was in chaos as they began to search for Murong Yu. The yin-yang fire that erupted from the yin-yang cauldron could even burn down the gate of immortality. This made many people jealous. If they could obtain this ancient cauldron, then this sect would develop in a short period of time. After all, as long as someone directly used the yin-yang fire to burn down the gate of immortality during the tribulation, then that person would definitely become an immortal. In this way, a large number of immortals would appear in this sect. It was impossible for this sect not to become powerful. However, although they all saw the scene of Murong Yu transcending the tribulation, no one knew where Murong Yu was transcending the tribulation. This was because they could not enter the extreme heaven realm. Even if Murong Yu was really punished by the heavenly tribulation and died, the people of the cultivation world would not be able to obtain his treasures. While the cultivation world was in chaos, Murong Yu in the extreme heaven realm looked at the tribulation clouds in the sky and smiled bitterly. Of course, this was not a heavenly tribulation. It was just a routine tribulation after every breakthrough. Moreover, it seemed that although these tribulations had great power, they were not as terrifying as the power of the 4 tribulations in 9. Even if Murong Yu did not have a trace of strength, he was confident that he could withstand these tribulations with just the strength of his body. Moreover, the Tree of Life was constantly absorbing the drifting chaotic energy in the void to replenish Murong Yu's body. Although it was only a short period of time, Murong Yu's strength had recovered a lot. A physical body of a 3rd-grade immortal artifact. Even those immortals are far inferior to it, right? Murong Yu gently clenched his fist. Bang, bang, bang. A series of explosions rang out in the void near the fist, and the void shattered. Murong Yu gently clenched his fist and shattered the void. Then, Murong Yu punched out. Boom! A huge hole was blasted in the void by him. What a powerful force! Murong Yu's face was filled with joy. With such a powerful force, even those half-step immortals could not compare to it, right? When Murong Yu wanted to continue sensing the changes in his body, the pressure in the sky became more and more intense. A tribulation cloud of this level is no longer able to temper the body. Let's shatter it then. With a thought, Murong Yu soared into the sky and rushed below the tribulation cloud, then punched out. At this moment, the 100,000 Chaos members on the ground saw a scene that they would never forget in their lives. When Murong Yu punched out, the heavens fell and the earth cracked. The most terrifying thing was that the tribulation cloud in the sky was scattered. It actually works. Murong Yu was overjoyed and then shouted. A terrifying force erupted from his body and blasted toward the tribulation cloud in the void. The poor tribulation cloud did not even have time to send down a bolt of tribulation lightning before it was shattered by Murong Yu. Murong Yu had shattered the tribulation cloud. The 100,000 Chaos members and even the demon kings who were secretly watching this scene from afar were shocked. Is he still human? Even the heavenly tribulation was shattered. Fortunately, the people from the cultivation world and the immortal world did not see this scene. Otherwise, they would definitely be shocked by Murong Yu. After the tribulation cloud was shattered, the heavenly tribulation also disappeared and no longer condensed. However, Murong did not land at this time. Instead, he stood in the void and felt his powerful strength. As usual, after overcoming the heavenly tribulation, Murong's cultivation level directly crossed 3 small realms and reached the late stage of the transformation realm. He was almost at the peak of the transformation realm, the late stage of the transformation realm, and the body of a 3rd-grade immortal artifact. With such a combination, his strength was far beyond that of an ordinary half-step immortal. Now that I'm facing that old bastard Wang Yin, I'm confident that I can beat him to death. Murong could not help but think of the time when he was almost killed by Wang Yin, that half-step immortal near the immortal ascension platform. After leaving the extreme celestial realm, it's time to pay a visit to Zhuxianzong and the other sections. It's time to settle the score. Murong's eyes flashed with killing intent. This was especially true for that old bastard Wang Yin. Back then, he had relied on his powerful strength to make a move against Murong. Murong had long wanted to kill him. However, that mysterious expert did not send Wang into the immortal world. Could it be that he wanted to give me a chance to take revenge? This thought suddenly appeared in Murong's mind. Wang was also nearing the end of his life. However, the mysterious expert did send the giant ape king and the others to the immortal world, but not Wang, and that's good. Otherwise, it would be difficult to bring bad luck. Murong narrowed his eyes slightly. After all, the immortal world was too big. Even if he ascended, it would be as difficult as finding a needle in a haystack to find Wang, and now I have the confidence to fight those immortals. Murong felt that ordinary half-step immortals were no match for him. His confidence swelled, and he felt that he could fight against immortals. I wonder how strong the immortal sects are. Do they have the dragon energy? After reaching a certain level, one would not use the dragon energy in battle. After all, once the dragon energy was used, the opponent would know his strength, and he would be controlled. The tree of life has grown again. All of a sudden, Murong felt something strange in his dantian. When he looked over, he was immediately stunned. The tree of life was originally only about 10 meters tall. Now it was 1,000 feet tall. 1,000 feet, which was more than 300 meters tall. Not only was the tree dozens of times taller than before, but the trunk and crown of the tree of life had also grown dozens of times. The tree of life had finally grown into a towering tree. At the same time, the chaotic energy purified by the tree of life had also increased by dozens of times. Even though Murong's meridians had expanded a lot, he still felt a surge of energy. This was what it meant to have an endless supply of energy. It's a pity that I haven't broken through to the 2nd level of the chaotic celestial record. Murong was a little depressed when he realized that he had not reached the 2nd level of the chaotic celestial record after cultivating for more than 20 years. At this time, he also knew that the 1st level of the chaotic celestial record corresponded to the 10 realms of the cultivation world. If he broke through to the 2nd level of the chaotic celestial record, it would mean that he had entered the immortal realm. Although his strength had increased, he was still in the transformation stage. He had not even reached the peak stage. It's time to settle the score. After a long time, Murong's figure disappeared into the void. Chapter 3:22. On the highest peak of Qingxian Peak, 2 figures, one black and one white, stood side by side. From afar, the 2 of them looked otherworldly, like a mortal from the heavens, but also like an immortal couple. These 2 people were Murong and Zhao Jiqing. Murong had not seen Zhao Jiqing for a while, and he missed her very much. Therefore, he came to Qingxian Peak immediately after the tribulation. The mountain wind blew, and their clothes fluttered. The 2 of them had been standing on this peak for half a day, but they did not speak. Zhao Jiqing also calmed down from the worry she showed when she first saw Murong. She knew that since Murong could come here, it meant that the tribulation could not hurt him. Zhao Jiqing had blind faith in Murong. Smelling the faint fragrance of the beauty beside him, Murong did not speak. He enjoyed the rare time they had together and enjoyed the rare moment of peace. The cultivation world was a world where the strong preyed on the weak. If one wanted to survive in the cultivation world, they must have great power. Therefore, after stepping into the cultivation world, Muronyu had been cultivating, and there were not many days of peace like this. You have to be careful in the future. Now, many people in the cultivation world are eyeing the yin-yang cauldron. Even those immortals would be tempted. After a long while, Zhao Jiqing looked at Muronyu and indifferently said, "Don't worry." Muronyu looked at Zhao Jiqing strangely. "Why are you suddenly eyeing the yin-yang cauldron?" As he spoke, a murderous intent flashed in Muronyu's eyes. With his current strength, he would kill anyone who came. Muronyu would never show mercy to those who wanted to take something from him. However, he was puzzled by Zhao Jiqing's sudden words, and specifically mentioned the yin-yang cauldron. The entire cultivation world saw how you used the yin-yang flame to burn down the immortal gate. Now, everyone wants the yin-yang cauldron. The entire world of cultivation saw me transcending the tribulation. Muronyu was shocked. He was crossing the tribulation in the extreme heavenly realm. Logically speaking, no one should have noticed him crossing the tribulation. However, he didn't expect that he was actually seen by others. Moreover, it was the entire cultivation world. What was going on? You don't know? Zhao Jiqing curiously looked at Muronyu. She thought that Muronyu already knew about this matter. Muronyu shook his head. He really didn't know. At this moment, he finally understood why the disciples looked at him with reverence when he first appeared on Qingxian Peak. It turned out that they had all seen him pass the tribulation and burn down the gate of immortality. Realizing that Muronyu really didn't know, Zhao Jiqing could only tell him what had happened at that time. After hearing this, Muronyu smiled bitterly and helplessly. Now, everyone knew that he had a treasure that could even burn down the gate of immortality. What did it mean to burn down the gate of immortality? Even the strongest person in the immortal world couldn't destroy the gate of immortality. In other words, the yin-yang cauldron was so powerful that even the strongest person in the immortal world would covet it. Muronyu wasn't afraid of other people. He was only worried about the immortals and the mysterious expert. Would they also have designs on the yin-yang cauldron? If they had designs on the yin-yang cauldron, then Muronyu would be in danger. However, Muronyu didn't have confidence in dealing with those immortals. Moreover, those were immortals from the upper realm. If this matter were to spread in the immortal world, then he would be in even more danger. After pondering for a moment, Muronyu sneered, "I'll kill whoever dares to have designs on my treasure, even if he's an immortal. Just be careful." Zhao Jiqing's heart skipped a beat. She wanted to say something, but in the end, she didn't say anything. She just reminded him to be careful. "Don't worry, I haven't married you yet. I'll take good care of myself." Muronyu reached out and wrapped his arms around Zhao Jiqing's slender waist. Zhao Jiqing blushed. She struggled slightly, but couldn't break free. In the end, she let Muronyu hug her. Meanwhile, she was nestled in Murongyu's embrace with a dazed look in her eyes, smelling the faint fragrance of Zhao Jiqing's hair. Muronyu looked into the distance and smiled. "How nice would it be if I could hug you like this for the rest of my life?" Zhao Jiqing's delicate body trembled slightly. Her heart was filled with sweetness. If possible, Muronyu really didn't want to continue cultivating and killing. However, he knew that it was impossible. Living in this world where the strong preyed on the weak, if he wasn't strong enough, he would be killed by others. Not to mention being together with Zhao Jiqing, it was impossible for him. If he wanted to be together with Zhao Jiqing, if he wanted to quietly live the life he wanted, then he needed to be strong. Strength. Looking down at Zhao Jiqing, Muronyu felt a little guilty. All this time, Zhao Jiqing had followed him and never regretted it. However, he had never given her anything, not even a promise. Muronyu knew Zhao Jiqing's feelings, and he also knew his feelings for Zhao Jiqing. How could he not want to have a family of his own with Zhao Jiqing? Just like Li Feng, getting married, having children, and living the life of an ordinary person. However, Morong couldn't give Zhao Jiqing that much right now. Because he wasn't strong enough, he couldn't give Zhao Jiqing too much. The immortal gate is completely open. You should be the first to come here. However, will there be heaven's punishment? Thinking about how Morong burned down the entire immortal gate, Zhao Jiqing was very happy. Because that person was her man. However, she was still a little worried. Heaven's punishment? Morong smiled. In the face of absolute strength, even heaven can't do anything to me. Moreover, does heaven really exist in this world? Morong didn't believe in the existence of heaven's punishment. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been so bold as to burn down the immortal gate. Right. When are you going to ascend? Zhao Jiqing suddenly asked. After transcending the 4 and 9 heavenly tribulation, ordinary cultivators couldn't ascend because of their limited aptitude and strength. However, Morong was different. With such a huge immortal gate, it wouldn't take long for him to ascend. Morong could only shake his head. I'm a little special. Although the immortal gate is huge and constantly tempering my body, I don't know when I'll be able to ascend. Maybe I'll never be able to ascend, or maybe I can ascend now. Morong was originally a chaotic celestial body with a supreme physique. There was no need for him to transform into an immortal. As long as he was strong enough, he could shatter the void and ascend to the immortal world. However, how strong did he need to be? Morong wasn't sure. Perhaps he could shatter the void and ascend to the immortal world now. Or perhaps he would need to wait until he reached major completion of the first stage of the chaotic celestial body record. In any case, Morong wasn't in a hurry to ascend. Moreover, he now had a lifespan of 30 million years. A lifespan of 30 million years was more than 60 times that of an ordinary transformation stage cultivator. With such a lifespan, Morong's strength would become more and more powerful even if he didn't cultivate. By the way, you're about to transcend the 4 and 9 heavenly tribulation, right? Morong said gloomily. Morong himself had a supreme physique. He had all kinds of Dharma treasures, various fortuitous encounters, and various life and death battles. All these things allowed his strength to improve rapidly. However, Zhao Jiqing seemed to have been in the Hidden Fairy Valley all this time. She didn't experience any life and death situations or have any fortuitous encounters. However, her cultivation speed wasn't slow either. It was almost the same as Morong's. Seeing Morong's gloomy and defeated look, Zhao Jiqing smiled slightly. She also didn't know how her strength improved so quickly. Everything seemed to flow naturally. When her strength reached a certain level, she naturally broke through to the next realm. Of course, Zhao Jiqing's combat strength couldn't be compared to Morong's. Morong spent half a month in Qingxian Peak. During these days, he guided Zhao Jiqing, Jianglu, Chonglu, and some of the disciples of Qingxian Peak in their cultivation. With Morong's current strength, it was easy for him to see the various flaws in their cultivation. After pointing out these flaws one by one, their strength improved. Some even broke through to the next realm on the spot. In the end, after handing over many spirit veins and other resources to Zhao Jiqing, Morong left Qingxian Peak. Xianyue sect. Ever since she came out of seclusion last time, Yu Mengqing's strength had reached the late stage of the tribulation stage. A few days ago, she had also transcended the 4 and 9 heavenly tribulation and officially reached the transformation stage. She should be happy to enter the transformation stage, but Yu Mengqing didn't feel happy. On the contrary, there was a faint trace of worry in her heart. After Morong blasted open the immortal gate, he immediately welcomed the heavenly tribulation. Back then, Morong was already exhausted. Could he still resist the heavenly tribulation? Over the past half a month, Xianyue sect had also been collecting news about Morong. However, even though all the major sects and forces were digging 3 feet into the ground to find Morong, there was no news of him at all. It was as if Morong had disappeared into thin air. Could it be that he was really killed by the heavenly tribulation? That big hooligan shouldn't have died so easily, right? Sitting in her boudoir, Yu Mingqing muttered to herself, "Miss, it's not a good habit to talk about others behind their backs." At this moment, a voice sounded behind her. Yu Mingqing was shocked. This was her room, and she had already reached the transformation stage. However, she didn't realize that someone had entered her room. Even she couldn't discover this person. What kind of expert was he? Yu Mingqing turned around abruptly, only to see a face that was looking at her with a smile that made her want to punch it. "Big hooligan?" Yu Mingqing was startled at first, then she exclaimed. The person who suddenly appeared in Yu Mingqing's room was Murongyu. However, at this moment, he had a gloomy look on his face. "I say, can you not call me Big Hooligan? After all, I'm someone with a status. You can call me Big Brother Murong, Big Brother Yu, or something like that." Yu Mingqing's face turned red. Then, she glared at Murongyu and said, "Go to hell. Good people don't live long. Bad people live for thousands of years. I'll definitely disappoint you." Murongyu smiled slightly. Then, he leaned back and lay directly on Yu Mingqing's small bed. However, Yu Mingqing's face turned red. Chapter 323. This Big Hooligan. Seeing that Murongyu was actually lying on her small bed, Yu Mingqing's face turned red and she gritted her teeth. Doesn't he know that he can't enter a girl's room as he pleases? He can't even sleep on a girl's bed. Gritting her teeth, Yu Mingqing walked up and was about to pull Murongyu off the bed. However, Murongyu was looking at Yu Mingqing with a smile on his face. As she approached, he suddenly exclaimed, "How fragrant!" Yu Mingqing's face turned red. Murongyu was actually teasing her. Seeing that Yu Mingqing was blushing and didn't know what to do, Murongyu smiled and got up from the bed. At the same time, he said, "Okay, I won't tease you anymore." Murongyu also knew that he couldn't casually enter a girl's room and sleep on a small bed. He did this just to tease Yu Mingqing. "Big hooligan, you weren't destroyed by the wrath of heaven." After a long while, Yu Mingqing finally calmed down. Murongyu staggered and almost fell to the ground. He looked at Yu Mingqing speechlessly. "From what you're saying, it seems like I should be killed by the wrath of heaven." Yu Mingqing glared at him and said with a smile, "You've done too many bad things. It really doesn't make sense that you're not punished by the wrath of heaven. If that's the case, then don't stay by my side. Otherwise, you'll be implicated by me. Then you'll be wronged." Murongyu said speechlessly. Yu Mingqing rolled her eyes. If she was worried, she would have stayed far away from Murongyu. "Big hooligan, since you're fine, my mother wants to see you." Yu Mingqing pulled Murongyu out of the room and walked towards the main hall of the Xinhua sect. "Little girl, you've also broken through to the transformation stage. What's your strength now? How much of the gate of immortality was destroyed?" On the way, Murongyu tried to find something to talk about. "Of course, I can't compare to you. Oof. The immortal gate was fully opened, and you even burned it down. You have truly shocked the world of cultivation once again." Yu Mingqing rolled her eyes at Murongyu. She was still shocked when she thought about how Murongyu had burned down the immortal sect. Although Yu Mingqing had transcended the 49 heavenly tribulations, she'd only blasted a small portion of the door open. Although she had only managed to blast open a small portion of the immortal gate, Yu Mingqing's aptitude was above the vast majority of cultivators. After all, most cultivators could only create a crack in the immortal gate. With Yu Mingqing's ability to blast open the immortal gate, as long as she didn't die, it was only a matter of time before she ascended. Soon, they arrived at the main hall of the Mystic Moon sect. Vexiu was looking at Murongyu with a smile. "Murongyu, you should return the people you borrowed from me, right? Who are you?" "Oh, you mean Young Man and the others? It's not time yet. Moreover, they're not around," Murongyu said with a smile. What a joke. These people had already become part of the chaos. How could he return them? Murongyu had made up his mind not to return those people to the Mystic Moon sect. Although there were only a few dozen people, they were all cultivators in the transformation stage. Most importantly, they were all members of the chaos. None of them could be missing. Vexiu smiled and didn't mind. It was good that those disciples followed Murongyu. With Murongyu's growth speed, they might have greater achievements by following Murongyu. "Sect Master, Do you know who the mysterious expert who killed the immortal was? Seeing Ulvexiu, Moronu suddenly thought of the mysterious expert. With Ulvexiu's status, she should know the existence of the mysterious expert. He's the guardian of our cultivation world and also the Punisher. Guardian? Punisher? Moronu and Yu Mengqing looked at each other. This was the first time they heard these two words. However, with the strength of that mysterious expert, it was enough to be the guardian of the cultivation world. What is a guardian? Moronu asked in confusion. You also know that this world doesn't know about our Huaxia cultivation world. There are a total of 108,000 cultivation worlds and 3,000 immortal worlds in the entire world. Although no one has passed through each world, some powerful experts can still directly open up and enter other worlds. It's precisely because of the existence of these powerful experts that a long time ago, there would be a great war in every cultivation world, invading or being invaded, plundering the resources of other worlds. Ulvexiu said slowly. Moronu and Yu Mengqing finally understood the origin of the Guardian. At that time, similar wars often happened in the 100,000 cultivation worlds and even the 3,000 immortal worlds, causing rivers of blood to flow and rain of blood. This situation continued for many years. In the end, it caused the immortal worlds and cultivation worlds to suffer. Large numbers of cultivators died. Sects and forces were constantly destroyed. Many inheritances were extinct. The overall strength of the cultivation world and immortal world became weaker and weaker. There were even signs of regression. Finally, a powerful expert couldn't stand it anymore and took action to stop all of this. At the same time, the cultivation world and the immortal world each set up a guardian. Guardians, punishers. While protecting the world, they were also the punishers of this world. They protected this world from being invaded by foreign enemies. If there were foreign enemies, the punishers could kill them. No matter who they were, they could kill them. What's the background of this punisher? Who appointed him? Moronu frowned and asked. Since there were punishers in every cultivation world and immortal world, there were punishers. This meant that the punisher was an organized entity, an organization that could have punishers, and there were many punishers in the immortal world. How terrifying was this organization's strength? And what was this organization? Who was the leader of this organization? Ulvexiu smiled and said, We only know about the existence of punishers, but we don't have the qualifications to know more. The Punisher organization was a huge organization. Even the lowest level Punisher was much stronger than ordinary immortals. As people of the cultivation world, they didn't have the qualifications to know more about them. Perhaps it was enough for them to know about the existence of Heaven's Punishers. Heaven's Punishers can easily kill immortals. Is he an expert from the immortal world? No, the Punishers of each world can only be people of this world, because only people from that world can better protect this world. Ulvexiu said, Then that Punisher should be an immortal who ascended from China's cultivation world. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to kill an immortal with one slap. Thinking of the power of the Punishers, Moronu couldn't help but feel shocked. All right, something big happened in the cultivation world recently. Are you interested to know? Ulvexiu suddenly looked at Moronu and smiled. Isn't the cultivation world talking about my tribulation recently? Moronu didn't think much of it. You burning the immortal gate indeed shocked the cultivation world. But not long ago, something even more shocking happened in the cultivation world and suppressed the news of your tribulation. What is it? Moronu was interested. It wouldn't be too much if people talked about him burning the immortal gate for 10 years. After all, it was too shocking. It was an unprecedented feat. Who could compare to it? Now, something big happened that suppressed his burning of the immortal gate. Then this big event must be even more shocking than his burning of the immortal gate. Li Su challenged an immortal. The strongest person of the younger generation who is first on the Dragon Phoenix list? He challenged an immortal? Moronu froze and then said disapprovingly, Was he killed or what? He was killed. Even he was killed. What's so shocking about that? It's very normal. Although he was curious about Li Su, who he'd never seen before. This guy was crazy enough to challenge an immortal. Wasn't that just asking for death? The immortal who was challenged was killed by Li Su. What? Li Su killed an immortal? Yu abruptly jumped up from his chair and looked at Vexiu in shock. You're not joking, right? Li Su can kill an immortal? I just got the news today, Vexiu said calmly. When she first heard the news, Vexiu's reaction was just like Yu's, disbelief. But this was the truth. Countless people had witnessed the battle between Li Su and the immortal, and saw Li Su kill the immortal with their own eyes. To have the ability to kill an immortal in less than 10,000 years of cultivation, Li Su's talent and strength were very terrifying. Isn't that immortal too trashy? Yu said disdainfully. In reality, Yu was still shocked. No matter how trashy an immortal was, he was still an immortal. He was definitely an expert who was above cultivators. Li Su, a cultivator who hadn't ascended yet, was able to kill an immortal. His strength was truly terrifying. This Li Su is truly worthy of being called the number one of the younger generation. His strength makes the older generation blush with shame. Yu Mengqing was also deeply shocked and only spoke after a long time. What's so great about that? I'll kill an immortal for fun someday, Yu said disdainfully. Li Su started cultivating earlier than him, so it was normal for him to be stronger. But Yu believed that he wasn't weak either. In fact, he was even stronger than Li Su. Given enough time, killing an immortal would be a piece of cake. Big. Yu, don't try to be brave. That's an immortal. Yu Mengqing looked at Yu worriedly and almost blurted out the words, big hooligan. Don't worry, I won't do anything rash. Yu wasn't an impulsive person. He wouldn't be stupid enough to challenge an immortal after being provoked by Li Su. He had to challenge an immortal, but not now. Although he felt that he wasn't weak, there was still a gap between him and an immortal. In the end, Yu only stayed a day at Mystic Moon's sect before leaving. He wanted to see the place where Li Su killed the immortal. Chapter 3:24. This time, Yu did not leave the Mystic Moon sect through the Hichu Luo Shu. Instead, he flew out directly. After all, the place where Li Su killed the Celestial was not too far from the Mystic Moon sect. Swoosh! Not long after Yu left the Mystic Moon sect, he saw a figure tearing through the void and rushing toward him. An eminent celestial. Yu frowned slightly when he sensed the person's powerful strength. However, he did not stop because of this. After all, ever since the Immortal Ascension platform appeared, eminent celestials had appeared in front of the world. They did not hide and cultivate like before. Yu did not pay much attention to the eminent celestial who was rushing toward him. Perhaps this eminent celestial was a powerhouse who had come to the Mystic Moon sect as a guest. However, Yu soon discovered that the eminent celestial was rushing toward him. Is he targeting me? Yu frowned slightly and stopped. He stood in the void and looked coldly at the figure who was rushing toward him. If this person was targeting him, he was not afraid at all. With his current strength, ordinary eminent celestials were nothing in his eyes. In fact, he did not mind killing this person and making him the first eminent celestial to die in his hands. Swoosh! The person who had come was a middle-aged man. He quickly appeared in front of Yu and looked at him. Before Yu could speak, the middle-aged man bowed to Yu and said respectfully, "You must be Mr. Yu, right? My master would like to see you." Yu looked at the middle-aged man indifferently. He wanted the middle-aged man to stop him. What was he trying to do? In fact, he was prepared to kill the middle-aged man. However, the middle-aged man's words shocked him. "Your master?" The middle-aged man was an eminent celestial. A powerhouse at this level was a top existence in both the sect and the cultivation world. He was respected by everyone. What kind of person was qualified to be the master of such a powerhouse? Yu was truly shocked. "Yes, my master invites you. If Mr. has the time now, I hope you can come with me." The person who came maintained a respectful attitude as he spoke. Yu was very satisfied with this person's attitude. However, Moron frowned at this person's inexplicable master's request. Who is your master? If Mr. Moron wants to know, you can come back with me for a while. It's not convenient for me to say my master's name. However, you should have seen my master in action before. He used the immortal ascension stage to kill an immortal from afar. A proud expression appeared on the half-step celestial's face as he spoke. Obviously, he felt proud because of his master. Enforcer. Moron Yu's heart trembled. It was the enforcer who had killed the immortal that day, and this punisher actually wanted to see him. Was this a good thing or a bad thing? The mysterious powerhouse who had attacked him that day was the enforcer. Only enforcer would be so arrogant as to look down on a sect like the Black Civ sect. When he heard Moron Yu mention the enforcer, the middle-aged half-step celestial's eyes flashed with surprise. Clearly, he was surprised that Moron Yu knew about the enforcer. After all, very few people in the cultivation world knew about the enforcer's existence. May I know why the enforcer wants to see me? Moron Yu asked nervously. When he saw Moron Yu's expression, the middle-aged half-step celestial couldn't help but laugh. He had some understanding of Moron Yu and knew that he was a fearless person. Now that he heard that the enforcer wanted to see him, he was somewhat nervous. Clearly, the enforcer was still somewhat intimidating to him. I don't know, the middle-aged half-step celestial said. He really didn't know why the enforcer wanted to see Moron Yu. If that's the case, then lead the way, Moron Yu muttered to himself. In the end, he decided to meet the legendary enforcer. After all, he was quite curious about the enforcer. Moreover, if the enforcer wanted to deal with him, as long as he was in the cultivation world, the enforcer could attack him. There was no escape. Most importantly, Moron Yu vaguely felt that the enforcer didn't want to deal with him. Otherwise, the enforcer wouldn't have sent an half-step celestial servant to invite him. If Moron Yu wanted to deal with him, he could kill Moron Yu with a single palm strike from afar. The Endless Heaven Peak was one of the cultivation world's forbidden areas. It was as famous as the Demon Mountain, and even more dangerous. Usually, very few people set foot there. At this moment, Moron Yu had already flown into the Endless Heaven Peak with a half-step celestial. The enforcer lives on the Endless Heaven Peak. Moron Yu was just a little curious. With the enforcer's strength, the enforcer could go anywhere in the cultivation world. Moreover, if he lived on a forbidden area, it would prevent cultivators from accidentally trespassing. With Moron Yu's current strength, of course, he was not afraid of the Endless Heaven Peak. He followed the middle-aged half-step celestial all the way to the depths of the Endless Heaven Peak. Along the way, Moron Yu and the enforcer encountered many powerful demonic beasts, including many demonic beasts of the half-step celestial realm. However, to Moron Yu's surprise, these demonic beasts, who were originally aggressive, retreated as soon as they saw the middle-aged half-step celestial. They didn't dare to provoke them. It was as if there was something about the middle-aged half-step celestial that they were afraid of. Seeing Moron Yu's confusion, the middle-aged half-step celestial smiled and explained, "As long as it's someone next to my master, these powerful demonic beasts won't dare to provoke them." It's the enforcer again. The enforcer's strength was so terrifying that these powerful demonic beasts actually retreated as soon as they saw the person next to them. Moron Yu was even more curious about this enforcer. The person who could make these uncivilized demonic beasts so afraid must be very powerful. Unlike the demonic mountain's demonic beasts, the Endless Heaven Peak's demonic beasts were more like ferocious beasts. They couldn't transform and were always in the form of ferocious beasts. They were extremely ferocious. Even if a half-step celestial accidentally trespassed on the Endless Heaven Peak, he wouldn't be able to get away with it. My master's up there. Follow me. The middle-aged half-step celestial and Moron Yu landed at the foot of the Endless Heaven Peak. Then, they unfolded their bodies and rushed toward the top of the Endless Heaven Peak. Moron Yu didn't think much of it. Why don't we just fly up there? Why do we have to walk up there? The Endless Heaven Peak forbids flying. The middle-aged half-step celestial's words instantly made Moron Yu give up on the idea of flying. Forbidden flying meant that they couldn't fly. They could only run up there. But fortunately, Their running speed wasn't bad. It was even faster than the flying speed of many half-step celestials. It didn't take long for them to reach the top of the Endless Heaven Peak. The Endless Heaven Peak towered into the clouds. Generally speaking, this kind of peak should be covered in snow and incomparably cold. However, when Murong-Yu reached the top of the Endless Heaven Peak, he was surprised to find that it was as if he had entered 100 flowers garden. 100 flowers competing in beauty. It was like the spring of the southern nation. The scenery was beautiful and made people feel relaxed and happy. Murong-Yu looked at this scene blankly. He felt that it was somewhat inconceivable. After a long time, he came back to his senses and thought, this is a good place to live in seclusion. The enforcer really knows how to enjoy life. My master is in the main hall. Please go in. The middle-aged man brought Murong-Yu to the front of one of the few buildings on the peak. His tone became even more respectful. Murong-Yu nodded and took a deep breath. Then he stepped into the palace. The palace wasn't big and the decorations weren't luxurious. It could even be said that it was somewhat crude. However, it gave people a sense of tranquility. At the back of the main hall, a middle-aged man looked over the moment Murong-Yu entered the palace. He is the enforcer? He's just SOSO. The middle-aged man didn't reveal a powerful aura, nor did he have the aura of a superior. He was almost like an ordinary mortal. Murong-Yu also looked straight at the middle-aged man. He didn't show any respect or fear because of the other party's identity. How dare you? Seeing the enforcer, not only did you not bow, but you also looked straight at me. You're really rude. After glancing at Murong-Yu, the enforcer suddenly shouted. Murong-Yu curled his lips and said indifferently, although you are the enforcer, you are nobody to me. Why should I bow to you? While speaking, Murong-Yu directly sat on a chair on the side of the palace and looked around at the furnishings in the palace. Seeing Murong-Yu's reaction, the enforcer was stunned at first, but then he nodded. He was more familiar with Murong-Yu, but he didn't expect this lawless guy to be so unrestrained in front of him. However, Murong-Yu's behavior made him even more satisfied. Are you really the enforcer? You are so poor. Murong-Yu looked around the palace and said so. Hearing that, the enforcer almost spat out the tea in his mouth. Poor? As the enforcer of the Huaxia cultivation world, it could even be said that the entire Huaxia cultivation world belonged to him. As long as he wanted, he could use all the resources in the cultivation world. He, who owned the entire cultivation world, was still considered poor? I own the entire cultivation world, the resources of the entire Huaxia cultivation world. I can use them as I wish, the enforcer said calmly. You are so rich. Hearing that, Murong-Yu immediately looked at the enforcer with shining eyes. Although he had some spiritual meridians now, he was too poor in other things. The equipment of 100,000 Chaos members had always been a headache for him. Originally, he planned to go to Zushinzong, Yuanshu sect, and other sects to rob after the heavenly tribulation, but he never had the time. If you want, you can also own the entire Huaxia cultivation world like me. The enforcer looked at Murong-Yu with a smile. Really? Absolutely. Murong-Yu suddenly said in disdain. Do you think I'm a 3-year-old child? That I'm so gullible? Other than you, the enforcer, who else can own the entire cultivation world? That's not right, you. Murong-Yu abruptly jumped up from his chair. His face was filled with shock as he looked at the enforcer in disbelief. He stuttered, You can't be. Chapter 325. Own the entire Huaxia cultivation world. The Huaxia cultivation world was a world. Although it was only a mortal world, it was still a world with endless resources. If he could possess such a world, then he would have endless resources to use. However, all this time, other than the enforcers, who could own the cultivation world? The enforcer said that Murong-Yu could own the entire Huaxia cultivation world. Did he mean that he wanted Murong-Yu to be the enforcer? Murong-Yu snapped out of his daze and looked at the other party in shock. However, he quickly regained his senses. Even if the enforcer wanted to step down, then this enforcer had nothing to do with him. As a result, Murong-Yu calmed down after his initial shock. You're right. I want you to be the next enforcer. The enforcer looked at Murong and said lightly. Murong was shocked and looked at the enforcer in shock. Then he smiled embarrassedly and said, "Are you kidding? This joke is not funny at all. My term is about to end, and you are the most suitable candidate to be the enforcer among the 3 candidates. Therefore, after I step down, you'll be the next enforcer." The enforcer looked at Murong and said lightly, "Are you serious?" Looking at the enforcer's expression, he did not seem to be joking. Although Murong was shocked, he still could not help but ask. Word for word. This time, it was Murong's turn to be puzzled. Why me? The cultivation world is big, and there are countless strong people. There are people who are stronger than me, and there are also people who are more talented than me. Why me? Why not the other 2? In terms of strength, although your current strength is not very good, it is enough to dominate the cultivation world. In terms of talent, have you seen anyone who has reached your level after only 20 years of cultivation? The enforcer looked at Murong and said lightly. He seemed to know Murong very well. In this regard, Murong did not find it strange. After all, the other party was a punisher and was known as the ruler of this world. Wouldn't it be extremely easy for him to understand one of them? Well, in terms of aptitude, although it's not that no one has ever been able to surpass me, it's true that no one in the cultivation world can compare with me. Murong laughed. He agreed with this point very much. However, I know very little about this so-called punisher. Most importantly, what are the benefits of being a punisher? Although Murong was a little tempted, he wasn't an impulsive person. He needed to understand the benefits involved before he could agree. Otherwise, he might be tricked by the enforcers. There are many benefits. You are the ruler of this world. You can have anything you want. If you don't like anyone, you could just kill them and no one will dare to find trouble with you. In short, you are the ruler of this world. You can even do whatever you want. The enforcer's voice was filled with temptation, causing Murong's heart to throb. Can I really kill whoever I want to kill? Murong smiled. If the enforcer really had this ability, he didn't mind directly destroying Zushinzong and the other sections. It's okay to make a small fuss. But if you make the cultivation world a mess, I don't know what the consequences will be. Murong was silent. Although he didn't know much about the enforcer, it was obvious that the enforcer was an organization. There was no need to think about it. In the immortal world, there must be experts with higher status than the enforcer. Those people would restrict and monitor the enforcer so that they wouldn't act recklessly. You're single now, right? No sect, no power, always being chased by people. Life must be very hard, right? If you join the enforcer, then you'll be a member of our Heavenly Punisher Palace. Do you know what Heavenly Punisher Palace is? Heavenly Punisher Palace, representing the heavenly punishment, is the strongest organization in the immortal world and even the heavenly realm. If you become enforcer, no one will dare to find trouble with you in the future. Seeing Murong was silent, the enforcer threw out another heavy bomb. Heavenly Punisher Palace, representing the heavenly punishment. Representing the heavenly punishment. How domineering was that? Just from these 4 words, one could see what kind of organization the Heavenly Punisher Palace was. It was an existence similar to the Imperial Court in the mortal world. However, this Heavenly Punisher Palace was countless times stronger than those Imperial Courts. Because it controlled the cultivation world, the immortal world, and even the heavenly realm. No power was enough in front of the Heavenly Punisher Palace. The Heavenly Punisher Palace was the most powerful organization in the world. If Murong really joined this organization, with the Heavenly Punisher Palace as his backing, no one would dare to touch him in the future. In the Heavenly Punisher Palace, only we kill people, no one kills us. We are the heavens, representing the heavenly punishment. The enforcer continued to talk about the benefits of joining the Heavenly Punisher Palace, constantly persuading Murong to join the Heavenly Punisher Palace. Although Murong felt that the enforcer was bragging, if the Heavenly Punisher Palace was really that powerful, it would have already unified the world. How could there be other sects? However, regardless of whether the Heavenly Punisher was bragging or not, it was undeniable that Murong was tempted. Not only could a powerful backer deter many cultivators and sects, It could even provide him with protection and various cultivation resources, and it was countless times better than working hard alone. Even if the Heavenly Punisher Palace was really unbearable, if he could control the Huaxia cultivation world and become the master of this cultivation world, Muron, you could use the resources of the cultivation world to cultivate his own forces. You said that your term is up, but what is going on? Moreover, I am only one of the 3 candidates. Who are the other 2? Looking at the enforcer, Muron, you asked. 100,000 years. 100,000 years? I'm suddenly not interested anymore. Muron, you instantly lost interest. If he stayed in the cultivation world for 100,000 years, it was definitely not worth the loss. Perhaps, for others, 100,000 years was nothing. Maybe they could not even ascend. But with Muron Yu's cultivation speed, 100,000 years was already an unknown level. How could he be willing to spend 100,000 years in the cultivation world? Don't be in a hurry to refuse. Although the enforcer has a time limit, it does not limit you to be in the cultivation world. You can ascend like others and go on adventures. What you have to do is to protect this cultivation world and not let this cultivation world be invaded by foreign enemies. Really? Muron Yu looked at the enforcer with a puzzled look. With my current strength, I am afraid that even ordinary immortals can't do anything to me. How can I resist those foreign enemies? If it were just cultivators from other cultivation worlds, it would be fine. However, there were also experts from the immortal world. If a perfected golden immortal or something like that were to descend, a single breath from them would be enough to destroy Muron Yu. How could they protect this world? After becoming enforcer, you can borrow the power of this world. As long as you are in the cultivation world, you are an invincible existence. Even if the immortal emperor comes, you can easily kill him. It was precisely because there were enforcers in every cultivation world that the immortals did not dare to descend. Even if they did, they would only be the weakest of celestial immortals. They knew that if the enforcers did not like them, they could easily kill them as soon as they entered the cultivation world. Do you know why those immortals descended? As far as I know, they're looking for a spatial magic treasure capable of carrying living people. It is very likely that it is the one you have. The enforcer reminded him. Muron Yu stared blankly for a moment. Then his eyes filled with killing intent. Just kill them all. If you kill a few of them, will you be able to destroy the Black Civ sect? Although the Black Civ sect is a weak power, it is a subsidiary of the Immortal Palace. Do you know the Immortal Palace? One of the 3 great sects of the immortal world. If my guess is correct, the immortals of the Black Civ sect descended because they received orders from the Immortal Palace. Muron Yu was gloomy. Then wouldn't I have offended the Immortal Palace? One of the 3 great sects of the immortal world? In that moment, Muron Yu felt like his balls were about to explode. He hadn't even ascended yet, and he'd already offended one of the immortal realm's 3 heavyweights. Of course, you can also offer up your treasure to them. Who knows, the Immortal Palace might even accept you as a disciple. The enforcer laughed. Muron Yu had to hand over his treasure without a second word. That was impossible. Furthermore, it was the Hichu Luo Shu. Even if he had to fight them to the death, Muron Yu would never hand over the Hichu Luo Shu. The Hichu Luo Shu was Muron Yu's everything. Without the Hichu Luo Shu, there would be no Muron Yu. The Immortal Palace may not be one of the 3 heavyweights, but as long as you join the Heavenly Punisher Palace, they won't dare touch you. What do you say? Muron Yu was moved. If the Heavenly Punisher Palace was so powerful, he would definitely join. Who are the other 2? The Lord of the Demon Mountain and Li Su. I'm sure you're familiar with them. It's the 2 of them? Muron Yu looked at the enforcer in surprise. Neither of them is weaker than me, right? Why did you choose me? Li Su is powerful. Before ascending, he could kill immortals. His current strength is definitely above yours. However, he has a peaceful temperament and is too conservative. He's not suitable to be an enforcer. As for the Lord of the Demon Mountain, although he's decisive and dauntless, he's not as lawless and fearless as you. Just because I'm fearless, you chose me? Muron Yu found it funny. Resolute in killing, indomitable, and fearless. These are the basic requirements of a Punisher. You must know that after becoming Enforcer, you'll have to face many enemies. Only someone with a personality like yours is the most suitable. Only then can you protect this world. What other benefits are there in becoming Enforcer? If that's all, I'll have to consider it. Hearing this, the Enforcer almost couldn't help but slap Morong Yu to death. These benefits weren't enough? If it were anyone else, they wouldn't even be able to hate them. This guy actually wasn't satisfied. However, although the Enforcer had the urge to slap Morong Yu to death, he'd waited countless years for a suitable successor. No matter what, he wanted this guy to become Enforcer. Otherwise, he'd have to continue staying in the cultivation realm. Chapter 326. It had been 3 days since Morong Yu came to the heaven-ceasing peak. Over the past 3 days, Morong Yu had learned a lot about the Enforcers and the Heavenly Punisher Palace. If the Enforcer hadn't lied to him, then becoming Enforcer was indeed a win-win situation for Morong Yu. Morong Yu would only benefit from it, and the Heavenly Punisher Palace was powerful. After joining the Heavenly Punisher Palace, Morong Yu would have a strong backer. This was what Morong Yu needed the most. After all, this guy was fearless and lawless. He didn't know how many people he had offended. It was still okay in the cultivation world. Basically, no one could do anything to him. But once he reached the heaven realm, if he didn't have a backer with his character, he would definitely be in trouble. The most important thing was that he hadn't ascended to the immortal world yet, but he had already obtained one of the 3 giants of the immortal world, the Immortal Palace. Old man, is the Heavenly Punisher Palace among the 3 giants of the immortal world? Morong Yu asked at that time. Originally, according to the Enforcer, the Heavenly Punisher Palace was so powerful that it was like the imperial court of the immortal world. It was definitely above the 3 giants of the immortal world. Those 3 giants of the immortal world, and so on, should be nothing in front of the Heavenly Punisher Palace. However, the Enforcer's answer made Morong Yu speechless. In the immortal world, not many people know about the existence of the Heavenly Punisher Palace. The Heavenly Punisher Palace is a special existence. It is a hidden king in the immortal world. In this regard, Morong Yu didn't think much of it. He always felt that the Heavenly Punisher Palace didn't seem to be as mysterious and powerful as the Enforcer said. However, old man, I agree. After thinking about it for 3 days, Morong Yu found the Enforcer and agreed to be the next Enforcer. Very good. Actually, you don't need to think about it for 3 days. The Enforcer is definitely the most suitable for you. The Enforcer was overjoyed. Now that Morong Yu had agreed, he could finally step down from his post and fly freely in the vast sky. Old man, when will you leave your post? Well, in other words, when will I succeed? Since he had agreed to become the next Enforcer, Morong Yu was naturally somewhat impatient. Within 100 years, I will be able to step down. Perhaps tomorrow, you will become the new Enforcer. However, you have yet to gain enough experience. Continue your training in the cultivation world. As he spoke, the Enforcer waved his hand. With a swoosh, Morong Yu found that the scenery had changed. The next moment, he found that he had been teleported away from the heaven-ceasing peak and appeared in a bustling city. Old man, you and I are irreconcilable. Morong Yu still had some doubts in his heart and wanted to ask the Enforcer. However, the old man directly teleported him away from the heaven-ceasing peak. This made Morong Yu feel inconsolable grief and indignation. The most important thing was that although Morong Yu saw the ruler of the Huaxia cultivation world, he did not get any benefits from the other party. This made Morong Yu feel unreconciled. Originally, Morong Yu wanted to blackmail the old man for a few hundred fairy weapons or something. However, the Enforcer directly killed his idea. Damn, old man. The next time we meet, I will definitely blackmail you until you can't even keep your underwear. Morong Yu said hatefully. At this time, on the heaven-ceasing peak, the Enforcer had a smile on his face. I finally tricked this guy into agreeing. I can finally relax. Well, fortunately, I had the foresight to teleport this guy away directly. Otherwise, I'm afraid I can't keep my belongings. It was obvious that the enforcer was very wary of Murong Yu, who would pluck all the feathers from the geese and leave nothing behind in his path. This is Chong and City. Not long after, Murong Yu found that he had been teleported to Chong and City, one of the 5 major cities in the cultivation world. Since he was in Chong and City, although Murong Yu was angry, after cursing the old man for a while, he found a restaurant. In the restaurant, the most talked about among the diners was the matter of Li Su killing the immortal. The matter of Murong Yu burning down the immortal gate was also occasionally talked about. However, under the cover of Li Su's brilliance, there were not many people talking about Murong Yu. Undoubtedly, Murong Yu was a little depressed that someone had stolen his limelight. Have you heard? The main purpose of those immortals descending to the cultivation world was to find a spatial magic treasure that their sect had left behind in the cultivation world that could store living people. It is said that the magic treasure is Murong Yu's. It is because of the existence of that magic treasure that Murong Yu became so heaven-defying and powerful. So what? With that spatial magic treasure, even if you beat me to death, I won't hand it over. Murong Yu definitely won't hand it over. Although those immortals are powerful, they wouldn't dare to openly snatch it in the cultivation world. You don't know about that. They really do dare to snatch it. Someone smiled mysteriously. What? Don't they care about that mysterious expert? Didn't that mysterious expert who killed the immortal say that they are not allowed to do as they please in the cultivation world? That was indeed what he said that day. But not long ago, that mysterious expert suddenly said something. The person who spoke was very mysterious and had a smug look on his face. What did he say? The man, who appeared to be very pleased with himself, lightly coughed and swept his gaze over all the diners in the restaurant. When he saw that almost everyone was attracted to him, he slowly said, "That mysterious expert said that he won't interfere in the matter between Murong Yu and the immortal. In other words, no matter what those immortals do to Murong Yu, that mysterious expert will not interfere." Hearing this, Murong Yu, who was also in the restaurant, spat out the wine in his mouth. Then he gnashed his teeth and said to himself, "Old man, you're ruthless. Could it be that the mysterious expert has compromised? After all, they're from one of the great sects of the immortal realm. I heard it's the Black Sieve sect or something." Someone frowned. "I don't know if they've compromised, but I do know that Murong Yu is definitely going to suffer a tragedy. I heard that he's in Chong, and those immortals are already rushing over." Murong Yu spat out the wine again. Now he finally understood what the old man meant when he said those words before he left. Experience. He actually wanted him to fight against those immortals. He'd been set up by the old man. Murong Yu didn't care about the discussion of whether or not the enforcers of punishment had compromised with the Black Sieve sect and other sects of the immortal realm. The Black Sieve sect was nothing more than a mediocre sect. The Heavenly Punisher Palace wasn't even afraid of the Immortal Palace. Of course, this was what the enforcers of punishment had said. Murong Yu would definitely keep his opinions to himself. However, the fact that the enforcers of punishment hadn't participated in the battle between Murong Yu and the Immortals, and had even taken the initiative to push Murong Yu in front of the Immortals, made Murong Yu gnash his teeth. "I'd like to see if you Immortals are really that strong. If Li Su can slaughter you, then so can I." After gnashing his teeth at the old man, Murong Yu laughed coldly. However, the next topic of discussion caused Murong Yu's killing intent to tremble. Zhu Shinzong and the Celestial Expanse sect had also stepped in. Do you know what that spatial treasure on Murong Yu's body is? It's a primordial divine artifact. It's said that he's from the Void Sky sect. Someone suddenly said, "Primordial divine artifact? Isn't that a lot more powerful than an immortal artifact? No wonder it can carry a living person. However, it originally belonged to Murong Yu, okay? Does Zhu Shinzong want to take it for himself again?" Someone asked doubtfully. Obviously, the world didn't have much of a good impression of Zhu Shinzong. In the beginning, they had expelled Murong Yu from their sect because of some groundless existence, which made many cultivators despise Zhu Shinzong extremely. Don't talk nonsense. That's a matter of fact. Not only Zhu Shinzong, but also the Celestial Expanse sect. What's going on? Murong sneered in his heart and couldn't help but listen in. He wanted to see what these two shameless sect had in mind. Did they really want to take his things for themselves? It's said that the primordial divine artifact didn't originally belong to Zhushenzong and the Celestial Expanse sect. More than 20 years ago, two disciples of their sect obtained the primordial divine artifact, but they eventually disappeared near an E-city. An E-city is the capital of the secular Xia dynasty, and most importantly, Murong Yu's home is there. More than 20 years ago, Murong Yu was a waste who couldn't cultivate, but one day, he suddenly became a cultivation genius. It's all because of the primordial divine artifact. Murong Yu's affairs are no longer a secret. Someone continued disdainfully. Even if Murong Yu really had a fortuitous encounter, what does it have to do with Zhushenzong and the Celestial Expanse sect? You don't know? Not long ago, the two sects found the tokens of their two disciples, and they even mentioned the existence of the primordial divine artifact. Do you know where they died? It's in the Pillar of Heaven's mountains outside an E-city. Murong Yu's transformation happened after he returned from there. The guy who spoke continued to speak methodically, as if he had witnessed everything at that time, as if what he said was true. At this moment, Murong Yu fell into deep thought. At that time, he was indeed accidentally kicked down the cliff and got the Hichu Luo Shu. Hichu Luo Shu couldn't have appeared there out of thin air. Someone must have left it there. Is it really related to the disciples of Zhushenzong and the Celestial Expanse sect? Murong Yu somewhat believed this. However, even if they really found the Hichu Luo Shu first, so what? It's his now. If these two sects dare to do anything to him, he will kill them. Moreover, Murong Yu hates Zhushenzong very much. Well, since Zhushenzong is looking for me everywhere, I'll send myself to him. It's time to settle accounts with them. Murong Yu sneered and then left the restaurant. Buzz. At the same time, a huge divine thought descended on Chong and City. A terrifying aura as vast as the ocean broke out and shrouded the whole Chong and City. It was very terrifying. Where's Murong Yu? Get out here. A cold voice was heard, sounding so arrogant and disdainful. Chapter 327. A young man stood proudly in the skies above Chong, and his expression haughty and disdainful. He looked down on the city below with disdain at the chaos that had descended upon it. Lowly cultivators will always be lowly cultivators. How unbearable. His disdain grew as he looked at the cultivators who'd put down what they were doing and soared into the air. Truth be told, he was an immortal after all. Whether in strength or status, he was superior to everyone else in the cultivation world. With his status, who in the cultivation world would dare disrespect him? Apart from a mysterious expert in Li Su. In truth, the only one who could cause these immortals to be apprehensive was the enforcer. Although Li Su had challenged the immortal and killed him, he was the weakest among the weakest. That was because that immortal was the weakest among them. Moreover, Li Su was also heavily injured at that time. If not for the mysterious expert, why would they need to be so careful? In a situation like this, he would have slammed down with his palm long ago, ignoring the lives of these cultivators. What do their deaths have to do with him? When we return to the world of immortals, I must report this to Forefather Qing Luo. A mere cultivator dares to interfere with our business? The immortal grumbled with displeasure. Murong Yu, get the hell out here. Seeing that Murong Yu still hadn't appeared, the immortal was furious and couldn't help but shout again. If not for the enforcer, he would have slammed down with his palm long ago. Everyone guessed that the mysterious expert didn't like Murong Yu and thus didn't participate in the battle between Murong Yu and the immortal. The immortals guessed the same, but even so, they didn't dare act impudently. They didn't dare cause a ruckus in the city. If they provoked the mysterious expert, they'd die. However, he still felt disdain for immortals like Murong Yu. Although he'd recently transcended his tribulation and achieved the feat of burning down an immortal gate, so what? After all, he was only in the transformation stage. How could he possibly be a match for an immortal? Moreover, The enforcer wouldn't interfere with their fight against Murongyu. This gave the immortals even more confidence that they'd be able to kill Murongyu. Not only would he acquire the spatial treasure that Patriarch Green Sieve needed, but he would also acquire the Yin Yang Cauldron. Perhaps because of this, Zushinzong and the people from the Sky Expanse sect also started to have thoughts about Murongyu. There were even more people who wanted Murongyu's Yin Yang Cauldron. Looking at the arrogant immortal standing in the air, Murongyu felt a little disdainful as he stepped into the air. "Are you Murongyu?" Looking at the indifferent Murongyu stepping into the air, the immortal felt a little disdainful. He could tell at a glance that Murongyu was only in the transformation stage. At such a realm, he could crush him to death with a single finger. "Who the hell are you?" Murongyu looked at the immortal with disdain. A murderous look flashed across his face. "Hand over the spatial magic treasure and the ancient cauldron, and I can consider sparing your life. Otherwise, I'll kill you and take them myself," the immortal said coolly, his tone full of disdain. Murongyu couldn't help but laugh. If he'd met this immortal before his tribulation, he would have run as far away as he could. After all, even half-step immortals could have killed him then. But now his strength had increased explosively. Did this immortal really have the ability to kill him? "You think you have what it takes? I only have one word for you, Scram. Scram as far away as you can." Murongyu suddenly roared. His voice shook the heavens like a clap of thunder. You, die." Suda had thought that Murongyu would obediently hand over his treasures, but hadn't expected that Murongyu would dare shout at him. He was a powerful immortal. In an instant, Suda flew into a rage. He stretched out his hand and grabbed at Murongyu with lightning speed. Murongyu sneered. He raised his strength to the limit and punched out. Boom! The two large hands collided fiercely in the void, creating an earth-shattering sound. A terrifying force suddenly erupted, and the void where the two collided was directly annihilated by the terrifying force. Both of their bodies shook violently, and they were both sent flying. Murongyu's figure swayed, and he steadied himself in the void in the distance. He shook his numb arm and suppressed the surging chi and blood in his body. He sneered and said, "Immortals aren't that weak." Suda was also sent flying thousands of miles away. At this moment, his face was full of anger and killing intent. He was a dignified immortal, but he was sent flying by a cultivator in the cultivation world. How could he endure this? Although this was only because he had acted hastily, he was still sent flying by Murongyu. This was a great humiliation to him. "Murongyu, you must die today. No one can save you." Suda looked at Murongyu with hatred. His killing intent soared into the sky, and he was extremely violent. "I'll say the same thing to you. You must die today. Li Su can kill immortals, but I, Murongyu, can also kill immortals. Today, I'll show you that immortals can't be above us cultivators. Today, I'm going to kill immortals." Before he finished speaking, Murongyu took a step forward and appeared hundreds of thousands of miles away. With their strength, they definitely couldn't fight in a city. Otherwise, many cultivators would be implicated. "Where do you think you're going?" Suda was furious. He immediately chased after him. "Murongyu wants to kill immortals. Can he really kill immortals?" Hearing Murongyu's heroic words, the people of Chong and city were in an uproar. Murongyu's strength had always been spread in the cultivation world. Before this, he was so powerful that he burned down the immortal gate. Such a powerhouse might really be able to kill immortals. Moreover, even if he couldn't kill immortals, Murongyu should have no problem protecting himself, right? After all, he had that spatial magic treasure. It's another battle between a cultivator and an immortal. It must be very exciting. In an instant, countless cultivators soared into the sky and chased after him at their maximum speed. This battle would definitely be very exciting. They definitely couldn't miss it. Murongyu used the army formula and rushed straight to a vast, desolate area before stopping. At this time, Immortal Suda had also rushed up. He erupted with a terrifying power and directly attacked Murongyu. I haven't even killed a half-step immortal before. Today, I'll skip over half-step immortals and kill immortals. Yu sneered and increased his strength to 100%. His killing intent soared, and his battle intent soared into the sky as he fought with immortal Suda. Waves of terrifying power were constantly struck out by them. The void was like a piece of paper that was constantly shattered and restored by these terrifying powers. The ground under their feet was also affected and turned into a desert. Bang! The two of them fiercely clashed once again. The huge impact sent Yu flying. The impact caused the blood in Yu's body to churn like a raging sea. However, to Suda's shock, although Yu was constantly sent flying by him, his body was so strong that he wasn't injured at all. That day, Li Su fought with another immortal. Although Li Su won and killed his opponent in the end. However, Li Su didn't fight with that immortal head-on. In the end, Li Su was still seriously injured. However, Yu directly fought with Suda. Every punch landed on his body. Could this kid's body have reached the level of an immortal artifact? Suda was shocked. One had to know that even a high immortal's body couldn't reach the level of an immortal artifact, let alone a small heaven immortal like them. If Yu told Suda that his body had reached the level of a third-grade immortal artifact, how shocked would Suda be? This kid is truly heaven-defying. I can't let him continue to grow. Otherwise, how will I have a foothold? After today's incident, they were destined to become enemies. If he couldn't kill Yu, then he would be the one to be killed in the future. With that thought, Suda instantly raised his strength to the limit and began to attack even more violently. Bang! 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 Yu was very strong. If he were facing an immortal, he would have killed him long ago. However, there was still a certain gap between him and an immortal. Under Suda's stormy attacks, Yu couldn't get close at all. He was constantly attacked like a sandbag. Fortunately, Yu's body was strong, and the Tree of Life was quickly healing his body. Otherwise, he would have been killed long ago. Yu is strong, but he is far from being a match for an immortal. Seeing Yu being suppressed by Suda, the cultivators in the distance didn't look too pleased. Yu may not be a match for an immortal, but it should be impossible for an immortal to kill him. Although Yu was being suppressed, he didn't show any signs of panic. Taking a step forward, Yu appeared behind Suda. Then, he sent a punch towards Suda's head. Suda sneered and sent a backhand slap out to block Yu's attack. At the same time, he also sent Yu flying. Your fleshly body may be strong, but you are still no match for me. An ant will always be an ant. No matter how strong your fleshly body is, you are still an ant. Today you must die. Suda sneered and quickly charged towards Yu. Yu wiped away the trace of blood at the corner of his mouth. Then, his face turned indifferent. Today, I will let you see how an ant in your eyes can kill you. Yu was truly enraged. The feeling of being suppressed was very uncomfortable. Yin-Yang Cauldron, kill him! Yu roared in his heart. Then, he summoned the Yin-Yang Cauldron and charged towards Suda. As soon as the Yin-Yang Cauldron appeared, it expanded with the wind. In an instant, it became the size of a mountain. Yin-Yang fire burst out and covered the sky as it charged towards Suda. Yin-Yang fire was a terrifying fire that could even burn an immortal sect. Although Suda was arrogant, he didn't dare to underestimate Yin-Yang fire. The moment the Yin-Yang Cauldron appeared, his body flashed, and he quickly retreated. Chapter 328. Seeing Suda retreat, Yu sneered in his heart and controlled the Yin-Yang Cauldron to attack Suda. At the same time, Yu used the army formula to increase his speed to the maximum and pounced on Suda again. Suda stopped after retreating for thousands of miles. His eyes lit up as he looked at the Yin-Yang Cauldron that was attacking him. His face was filled with joy. Back when Yu was undergoing the tribulation, he used the Yin-Yang Cauldron to burn the immortal sect to ashes. The immortal sect was something that even the immortal emperor couldn't do anything about. If the Yin-Yang fire could burn the immortal sect, it could also burn the immortal emperor. At that time, these people had already targeted Yu. Even if it wasn't for Hichu Luo Shu, these immortals wouldn't have let Muronyu go. Although they had some scruples because of the enforcer, they definitely wouldn't let Muronyu go. At this moment, seeing that the Yin Cauldron was indeed in Murongyu's hands, the overjoyed Su De already regarded the Yin Cauldron as his own. He reached out his hand and shattered countless space-time, grabbing the Yin Cauldron that was rapidly descending from the sky. Seeing this, Muronyu snorted in disdain. Although Su De was an immortal and was extremely powerful, could he compare to the immortal sect? The yin-yang fire could even burn the immortal sect, let alone him. Moreover, after the tribulation, Muronyu's strength had increased by hundreds of times. At this moment, the yin-yang fire's purity was even stronger and more terrifying than before. Whoosh! The yin-yang fire that filled the sky burst out fiercely, making sizzling sounds in the void. Huge, shocking holes continuously appeared in the void and couldn't be healed for a long time. With Murongyu's current strength, he could easily shatter the void of the cultivation world. However, the void had an extremely terrifying recovery ability. Generally, it would automatically recover the moment it was shattered. However, the void that was burned by the yin-yang fire couldn't be repaired for a long time. This was because the yin-yang fire was still burning the edges of the void holes. Only after the yin-yang fire dissipated could the void be restored. Suda's speed was very fast. The powerful hand rushed to the vicinity of the yin-yang cauldron in an instant. At the same time, it did not stop at all and directly reached into the yin-yang fire to grab the yin-yang cauldron. However, with a chi sound, Suda's large hand of power was burned as soon as it entered the yin-yang fire. The yin-yang fire erupted even more fiercely and pounced on Suda like a fierce tiger. Suda was taken aback. His figure swayed as he retreated once again. Then, he reached out his hand again and grabbed the yin-yang cauldron. However, as expected, it was burned the moment it came into contact with the yin-yang fire. Is this fire a divine fire? It's actually so terrifying. Suda was not depressed by the power of the yin-yang fire. On the contrary, he was even happier. This was because he had already decided that the yin-yang cauldron was his. Since it was his, of course, the more powerful it was, the better. At this moment, Muronyu frowned. Although he had the yin-yang fire, Suda couldn't do anything to him for the time being. But he couldn't do anything to him. Suda was too careful. He stayed far away and didn't give the yin-yang fire a chance to get close to him. After all, after seeing Muronyu burn the celestial gate with the yin-yang fire, who would dare to get close to the yin-yang fire? Unless they wanted to die. Since he couldn't get close to Suda, it was difficult for Muronyu to kill him with his strength. At this moment, Suda, who couldn't get close to the yin-yang cauldron again, set his eyes on Muronyu again. The yin-yang fire was too powerful. In this state, he couldn't get close to him at all. There was only one way now, to kill Muronyu. As long as he killed Muronyu, the yin-yang cauldron would naturally become an ownerless object. The yin-yang fire would also dissipate because no one was controlling it. At that time, Suda could easily take the yin-yang cauldron. Muronyu die, Suda shouted and rushed over with a teleport. During this process, a saber that emitted a frightening aura appeared in his hand. Then, he ruthlessly slashed it at Muronyu across the air. A frightening power erupted as a gigantic blade ray, as large as a divine mountain, emitted a dazzling radiance as bright as the sun. It seemed to split the void in half as it slashed down at Muronyu with a world-destroying aura. What a terrifying aura! Muronyu's face revealed a hint of surprise. From the saber light, Muronyu felt an extremely dangerous aura. Even if his physical body was a third-grade immortal weapon, he was afraid that he wouldn't be able to withstand this attack. This saber definitely surpassed the third-grade immortal weapon level. Muronyu thought, and the yin-yang cauldron suppressed the huge saber light that was slashing at him. At the same time, a purple halo flashed on Muronyu's body. He had already taken out the purple ribbon immortal robe. Muronyu even secretly took out the Hichu Luo Shu and stuck it to his body. Chi! The huge saber light slashed a shocking crack in the void. Like lightning, It rushed in front of Murong Yu before the Yin-Yang cauldron could suppress it. It caught Murong Yu off guard. What a fast speed! Murong Yu exclaimed in his heart. The phoenix spear immediately appeared in his hand. He poured 100% of his strength into the spear and then stabbed it at the saber light that was tearing at him. Boom! The void within 1,000 miles was instantly annihilated. Murong Yu seemed to have suffered a heavy blow. The webbing between his thumb and index finger exploded, and he was violently sent flying. Along the way, he spat out a mouthful of blood. The blood splattered across the sky and drew a trail in the sky. Under the sunlight, it looked so sad and beautiful. Is this the power of an immortal? Is this the power of an immortal weapon? Suda's strength was very strong, but he could not directly injure Murong Yu. However, when he used the saber in his hand, his strength increased by several times. If Murong Yu had not used all his strength to block the attack of the saber light, even if Murong Yu's body was a third-grade immortal weapon, he would have been cut in half. An immortal weapon is indeed an immortal's weapon. Only an immortal can unleash its true power. Although Murong Yu was sent flying, he praised in his heart. Cultivators in the cultivation world could not unleash the power of an immortal weapon. In order to unleash the full power of an immortal weapon, one had to have the same strength as the immortal weapon. For example, if the saber in Suda's hand was a 5th-grade immortal weapon, Suda would have to have the same strength as a 5th-grade immortal weapon if he wanted to unleash the full power of the saber. If the user's strength exceeded the 5th-grade immortal weapon by too much, the immortal weapon would not be able to withstand the user's strength and would explode. He actually blocked my attack? Suda could not help but be shocked when he saw that Murong Yu was sent flying and spat out blood, but he was obviously not seriously injured. However, his movements are not slow at all. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. In an instant, Suda waved the saber in his hand crazily. In less than a breath's time, he actually slashed 10,000 times at Murong Yu. The saber light filled the sky, shattering the entire sky into pieces. It was a shocking sight. Tens of thousands of saber lights that contained a terrifying power that could destroy heaven and earth rushed toward Murong Yu crazily. What a terrifying aura! What a terrifying saber light! This immortal is too ruthless. Seeing Murong Yu surrounded by saber lights in all directions, the cultivators watching from afar couldn't help but gasp. They all asked themselves, if they were in Suda's shoes, how could they possibly escape from the saber light that filled the sky? Soon, they all shook their heads. They knew that if they were in Suda's shoes, they would never be able to escape. Meanwhile, on top of the heaven-ceasing peak, the enforcer, who had been resting with his eyes closed, suddenly opened them. A cold light flashed through his eyes. Humph! The Punisher snorted coldly. His figure flashed and disappeared on the spot. Murong Yu is dead for sure. On top of a mountain far away from the battlefield, a dozen immortals looked into the distance. They seemed to be able to see the battle between Murong Yu and Suda. If he's dead, we can go back and report on our mission. Not only did we complete Patriarch Blacksiv's mission, but we also reaped an unexpected reward. If we can give the ancient cauldron to Patriarch Blacksiv, then we'll definitely have a meteoric rise in the Blacksiv sect. The Patriarch will definitely put us in an important position. The other immortals nodded in agreement. Although they had descended to the mortal world to help Patriarch Blacksiv, it seemed very impressive. But who could have guessed that they were just ordinary disciples of the Blacksiv sect? They were only in the sky immortal realm and had no one to rely on in the sect. If they couldn't break through to the next level, then they would forever be ordinary disciples of the Blacksiv sect. At first, they had assumed that the reason they were allowed to descend to the mortal world was because the sect was putting them in an important position. But when they met the Enforcer, they realized that they weren't being put in an important position. The Enforcer knew that descending to the mortal world was not an easy task, and that they could be in mortal danger at any time. Otherwise, if there were no existences in the cultivation world that could threaten immortals, they wouldn't have been allowed to descend to the mortal world. If ordinary disciples were allowed to descend to the mortal world, then Patriarch Black Siv would naturally be happy and would reward them. But if they didn't, or if they all died, then there wouldn't be any losses. After all, the Black Siv sect had no shortage of ordinary disciples. Therefore, as soon as they discovered the Yin Yang Cauldron, they were determined to get their hands on it. With the cauldron, they could definitely become Patriarch Black Siv's favorites and be put in an important position. When they thought about the meteoric rise they would have after returning to the immortal world, they couldn't help but feel happy. Huh? Wait, that Murong Yu wasn't killed. The leader of the immortals let out a cry of surprise, as if he'd just seen something inconceivable. Chapter 329. The space where Murong Yu had been was now filled with saber lights that filled the sky. Each and every one of the saber lights contained a destructive divine radiance that pierced through the sky and shredded the space, drowning Murong Yu within. The cultivators in the distance couldn't help but feel disappointed. Murong Yu was only a cultivator, not even an immortal. Suda's saber attacks were probably something that even an immortal wouldn't be able to withstand. At this moment, they only felt that Murong Yu would probably be killed. Of course, it would be a different story if he could enter the Hichu Luoshu world. At the moment, Suda was standing in the void with a smile on his face. In his eyes, Murong Yu had probably been killed long ago. The only thing he could do now was to wait for the saber lights to dissipate and take the treasures on Murong Yu and the Yin Yang Cauldron. The saber lights slowly disappeared, and the void shattered by the saber lights had long been restored to its original state. How is this possible? Suda was about to fly over and take the Yin Yang Cauldron when he was shocked to find that Murong Yu was still standing in place and looking at him with disdain. Murong Yu is not dead. Although he's in a bit of a sorry state, he survived the immortal's attack. Seeing that Murong Yu was in a sorry state, but he wasn't killed, the cultivators in the distance began to boil with excitement. After all, although Murong Yu was crowned as a great devil by cultivators, he was still a cultivator of Huaxia. In the battle against the immortals, almost all the cultivators were united against a common enemy, the immortals. Of course, they were happy to see that Murong Yu was fine. This is your strongest attack. It's just SOSO. Murong Yu sneered as he looked at Suda's astonished and incredulous expression. In reality, Murong Yu only appeared to be in a sorry state. Normally, he wouldn't have been able to block these attacks so easily even if he had taken out the purple ribbon immortal robe. Even with the purple ribbon immortal robe, he would still be severely injured, unless he surrounded himself with the Yin Yang flame and used the terrifying power of the Yin Yang flame to burn down all the attacks. However, that was clearly impossible. After all, Suda's attack was simply too fast. Murong Yu simply could not recall the Yin Yang Cauldron in time. At this moment, in the space where the members of Chaos had yet to set foot in, the space on the side of the He-Tu and Luoshu worlds was being ravaged by a series of gigantic saber rays. The void was constantly being minced, and the mountains and lands were being crushed and sunk. If Suda was here, he would have discovered that these saber lights were the saber lights that he had sent out. How did the blade light he had used to attack Murong Yu enter the world of He-Tu in Luoshu? At that time, Murong Yu was unable to leave under the attack of the saber aura. He could dodge the first time, but could he dodge the second, third, or even more times? With a grim smile, Suda raised his strength and slashed wildly at Murong Yu again. Boom, boom, boom. Terrifying blade lights that could destroy heaven and earth shot forward, wanting to cut Murong Yu into pieces. However, what made Suda and the other cultivators' jaws drop was that when the saber lights reached Murong Yu's side, the saber lights disappeared into thin air. How is this possible? Suda couldn't help but be shocked when he saw the blade lights vanish into thin air. Even a golden immortal or arcane immortal several levels higher than him couldn't make one's power disappear into thin air. Perhaps a powerhouse like Forefather Blue Siv could do it. But Forefather Blue Siv was a golden immortal of the great firmament. Muronyu was only a puny cultivator, not even an Empyrean immortal. How had he done it? Even the enforcers couldn't help but frown, to say nothing of Suda and the others. Even with his strength, he couldn't figure out how Muronyu had done it. If he can maintain this state, Muronyu is practically invincible, the enforcers said indifferently. Based on this kid's methods, I'm afraid this Suda is going to suffer a tragedy, the Punisher said calmly. He saw the saber lights being transferred into the world of the He-2 and the Book of the Luo. Although the world of the He-2 and the Book of the Luo was bombarded by these saber lights, it was unable to damage the He-2 and the Book of the Luo. Seeing this, Muronyu's confidence couldn't help but soar. Whoosh! The Yin-Yang cauldron erupted with Yin-Yang fire and smashed down on Suda. At the same time, Muronyu took to the air and charged at Suda. Earlier, Muronyu hadn't dared to get too close to Suda because of his fear of the latter's powerful attacks. But now that he was in an invincible position, he naturally had to get close and use his various methods to kill his opponent. Suda's expression was incomparably ugly, and his attacks grew even fiercer. However, no matter what kind of attack hit Muronyu, it would vanish into thin air. Muronyu, on the other hand, had already closed in and attacked him directly. Whoosh! Suddenly, a banner surging with demonic chi appeared above Muronyu's head. It was the Soul Summoning Banner. The Soul Summoning Banner swelled in the wind and flapped noisily. Muronyu diverted a portion of his power to activate the Soul Summoning Banner. Suddenly, demonic flames filled the air and enveloped Suda. Because he didn't know about the Soul Summoning Banner, Suda didn't take the demonic flames seriously. However, when he came into contact with the demonic flames, he felt as if his soul was being pulled out by a large hand. It was so painful that it felt like his soul was being torn apart. Suda was shocked. He roared angrily, and his strength increased again, forcing the demonic flames away. At the same time, he teleported away and forced the yin-yang fire far away. Damn it, this bastard has so many magic treasures on him. Suda's expression grew even uglier. Although he knew that he wouldn't be able to kill Muronyu today, he didn't leave. As an immortal, being unable to deal with a cultivator was one thing, but if he ran away with his tail between his legs, others would laugh at him. Even he wouldn't look down on himself. If I can kill Muronyu, then all his magic treasures will belong to me. My battle prowess will increase several times over. Suda muttered to himself, trying to think of a way to kill Muronyu. Unfortunately, he was only an ordinary disciple of the Black Civ sect. The only weapon he had was a 5th-grade immortal weapon, which he'd acquired by accident. Muronyu felt somewhat gloomy as he watched Suda continuously being pushed back by his attacks. Although his speed wasn't bad, Suda wasn't slow either. There was no way he could effectively injure him. Bout of the Cosmos. Muronyu was determined to kill an immortal today. As he muttered to himself, the bow of the cosmos appeared in his left hand. Next, the human arrow of the Heaven Shaker arrows appeared in his right hand. Knocking the arrow, he shot it like a shooting star, piercing through the air as it shot towards Suda. After a moment's hesitation, Muronyu produced another golden arrow. Earth arrow. Whoosh! The earth arrow shot out. Finally, the heaven arrow of the Heaven Shaker arrows appeared in Muronyu's hand. This was the first time Muronyu was going to shoot a heaven arrow. Chapter 330. Chi. Once the human arrow and earth arrow of the heaven-shaking arrow were shot out, they exploded with an extremely terrifying pressure and speed. 2 dazzling golden lights that contained a terrifying pressure exploded, instantly shattering the void. However, it only lasted for a moment. After a moment, the terrifying aura and golden light disappeared, because at an extremely terrifying speed, the 2 arrows had actually disappeared into the void. The moment the heaven-shaking arrow was shot out, Suda felt an extremely dangerous feeling in his heart, as if the 2 huge auras that suddenly appeared could kill him. However, Suda soon relaxed because the two terrifying auras disappeared in the blink of an eye, like a flash in the pan. Although it was terrifying, it disappeared. Suda was naturally not afraid. At this moment, Suda was looking at Murong Yu with disdain, as if he was mocking Murong Yu. At the same time, the cultivators in the distance were also stunned by the terrifying aura of the heaven-shaking arrow, and then they were puzzled. They did not know that the heaven-shaking arrow did not disappear, but because its speed was too fast, it disappeared into the void. They all thought that the heaven-shaking arrow had disappeared. The heaven-shaking arrow was indeed a powerful divine weapon passed down from ancient times. Even though Murong Yu's strength was comparable to an immortal, he was still unable to fully draw the bow, not even half of it. He was still only able to draw a small part of it. However, as Murong Yu's strength became stronger and stronger, the bow was gradually drawn more and more by him. The power of nature also became stronger and stronger. Most importantly, Murong Yu no longer needed to burn pills or spiritual veins to draw the bow. One had to know that when he first drew the bow, Murong Yu's strength was not enough to draw the bow. In fact, even if he burned pills, he could only barely draw the bow. Now, his strength was enough to draw the bow, and he could do it 3 times in a row. Now, he only needed to draw the bow fully. The 3 heaven-shaking arrows each had their own abilities, but their power was so terrifying. When Murong Yu shot the heaven arrow, the dazzling golden light illuminated the entire sky. Even the light emitted by the sun hanging in the sky seemed to be suppressed. An incomparably terrifying aura erupted from the heaven-shaking arrow and quickly spread out in all directions like a tide. At this moment, many cultivators' faces were filled with fear. This aura was simply too terrifying, causing many cultivators to feel a sense of danger and even an aura of death. In fact, at this moment, many cultivators could even see death looming over them. Suda, who bore the brunt of the attack, was the same. Even though he was an immortal, he was still shocked by the terrifying power of the heaven-shaking arrow. A sense of death rushed up from the bottom of his heart. At this moment, Suda turned around and was about to flee. In a situation where his life was in danger, the dignity of an immortal and the ridicule of others were all thrown to the back of his mind. Life was the most important thing. However, just as Suda turned around and was about to escape, the sky-shaking arrow that gave him the aura of death also disappeared. Suda stared blankly for a moment before bursting into laughter. "This is the arrow you shot? Ha! Are you trying to make me laugh to death?" Although he didn't know what was going on, he only needed to know that the arrow had disappeared. What a pity. Otherwise, with these arrows, even if they couldn't kill an immortal, they would probably be able to severely injure him. Seeing the heaven-shaking arrows disappear one after another, the cultivators in the distance couldn't help but feel depressed. That immortal was so scared that he wanted to escape. What a pity. Many cultivators felt extremely regretful and sighed in their hearts. There is only one person who didn't feel that it was a pity, and that was Murong Yu. At this moment, Murong Yu was looking at Suda, this immortal, as if he was looking an idiot. "I advise you to hurry up and run for your life, otherwise you won't have a chance later." Murong Yu said indifferently. "Run? Why should I run?" Suda couldn't help but laugh. He felt that Murong Yu must be crazy. Murong Yu didn't say anything. He just put the Cosmos bow back into the Hichu Luoshu and said at the same time, "You're dead." Huh. Suda was just about to laugh out loud and sneer at Murong Yu when his expression suddenly changed. Chi. Almost at the same time, 3 golden rays that contained a terrifying aura suddenly pierced through the void and appeared out of thin air. At the same time, Suda felt that he was locked on by 3 auras. "It's the 3 arrows." Suda was shocked. Then, he screamed and turned around to escape. However, the 3 heaven-shaking arrows had already locked onto him and appeared in front of him. How could they let him escape? Even if Suda's reaction speed was extremely fast, could it be faster than the heaven-shaking arrows? Chi! 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 The 3 heaven-shaking arrows shattered the void. At the moment when Suda turned around to escape, they had already bombarded him fiercely. Bang! Suda's body first emitted a divine light that shot up to the sky, but this divine light was instantly shattered by the heaven-shaking arrows. Then Suda roared loudly. He poured all his strength into the fifth-grade immortal artifact in his hand and slashed at the 3 heaven-shaking arrows. However, even though the fifth-grade immortal artifact was a fifth-grade immortal artifact, it couldn't withstand the terrifying power of the heaven-shaking arrows. The moment the 2 heaven-shaking arrows appeared, the fifth-grade immortal artifact let out a loud sound. Under the impact of the heaven-shaking arrows, it shattered into thousands of pieces. Oh no, Suda is in danger. The remaining immortals who had arrived nearby saw this scene, and their expressions changed drastically. They wanted to help. However, just as they were about to make a move, an extremely powerful divine thought enveloped them. It's that bastard again. When they sensed this powerful divine thought, the immortals could not help but rage in their hearts. Previously, when Li Su had challenged the immortal and was about to kill him, they had wanted to help as well. However, at that moment, this incredibly powerful divine thought had enveloped them. They knew that this was the mysterious expert who had slapped an immortal to death from afar on the Immortal Ascension Plateau. He was also the enforcer. If the enforcer had not secretly interfered, that immortal would not have died. The one who would have died would have been Li Su. Moreover, after killing the immortal, Li Su would not have continued to live well. If the enforcer had not interfered, they would have destroyed the entire Hidden Fairy Valley. Now, just as they were about to save Suda, the enforcer's divine thought enveloped them again. When they realized that they had been locked onto, the immortals cursed the enforcer in their hearts, but did not dare make any sudden movements. They did not doubt in the slightest that if they showed any signs of wanting to attack, the enforcers would definitely not be lenient and would directly kill them. Suda, you're on your own now. The immortals did not dare attack. They could only watch helplessly as Suda was sent flying, spitting out mouthfuls of blood. The immortal was indeed an immortal. Under the impact of the heaven-shaking arrow, only one of his arms and one of his thighs were shattered, and there was only a huge transparent hole in his abdomen. Although he hadn't been killed, Suda was gravely injured. If it weren't for the blinding light that had erupted from Suda's body, and the fact that his blade had blocked part of the heaven-shaking arrow's attack, he would have been smashed to pieces. Moronyu stepped forward, the phoenix spear in hand. He looked at Suda with a cold smile. I told you were dead for sure. I told you to run, but you didn't. Now, do you know what that feels like? As he spoke, Moronyu's movements were not slow. He thrust his spear at Suda's head. He feared that the immortals would save Suda at the last moment. The Black Civ sect won't let you get away with this. Patriarch Black Civ won't let you get away with this. You will die. Suda knew that he couldn't escape. He also knew why none of his companions had come to his rescue. Most likely, it was because that immortal had interfered. Suda sighed, unwilling to accept this. Sullen, he slowly closed his eyes. He couldn't accept this. He was a dignified immortal, and yet he'd been killed by a cultivator from the lower realms. Even if he died, he'd still feel aggrieved. Nobody knows whether I'll die or not, but you're dead for sure. Moronyu laughed coldly, thrusting his spear forward. Bang! A cloud of blood exploded. Moronyu's spear had blown Suda's head apart. Just like that, Moronyu had killed an immortal. After killing Suda, Moronyu's heart was filled with anxiety. He'd already locked on a Hichu Luo Shu. He was afraid that the immortals would attack him in a fit of rage. He waited for a long time, but none of the immortals attacked. Could it be that the old enforcer acted to intimidate them? Moronyu suddenly understood. Only the old enforcer would have dared to attack. Perhaps Li Su had been able to kill an immortal because the old enforcer had acted in secret. With a flick of his spear, he took Suda's storage ring. At the same time, he recalled the 3 heaven-shaking arrows and disappeared from the spot. This little bastard is too vicious. He didn't even let Suda's storage ring go. Although Li Su had killed another immortal, he'd at least left the latter's storage ring behind. Murongyu was a classic example of taking advantage of every opportunity. Shock! Shock! The cultivation world went crazy again. For hundreds of thousands of years, not a single immortal had successfully ascended to the immortal realm. But not long ago, immortals had descended from the immortal realm. This was the first time that most cultivators had seen immortals. These immortals had used their auras to suppress the top experts of the cultivation world on the immortal ascension stage. They'd shown the world how powerful they were. It wasn't that the top experts of the cultivation world were too weak, but that the immortals were too strong. But not long after, these high and mighty immortals, who stood above the rest of the cultivators, were killed by a young expert of the cultivation world. Li Su's killing of an immortal had shocked the cultivation world. It had made people think that perhaps immortals weren't so high and mighty after all, and that even cultivators could kill them. But today, Murongyu had also killed an immortal. Could it be that immortals were as common as cabbages? So ordinary? So easy to kill? But everyone knew that immortals were still as strong as ever. They weren't easy to kill. The only reason they'd been killed so many times was because Murongyu and Li Su were too strong. When news of Murongyu killing an immortal spread, the world hailed them as the two strongest cultivators in the cultivation world. Of course, that didn't include the enforcer. They weren't just the two strongest cultivators of the cultivation world in the cultivation world. Chapter 331. After Li Su slaughtered an immortal, Murongyu slaughtered another immortal. In an instant, news of Murongyu slaughtering immortals spread throughout the cultivation world, causing it to be shaken once again. The magnificent feat of a cultivator slaughtering immortals in succession erased the immortal's lofty and invincible image in one fell swoop. Although immortals were much stronger than cultivators in terms of realm and strength, they weren't all high and mighty. Even a cultivator in the cultivation world could slaughter them. Originally, when immortals descended into the cultivation world, they used their aura to suppress many experts in the cultivation world to prostrate on the ground, unable to fight back. Although a punisher had killed one of the immortal's strength was still like a divine mountain pressing down on everyone's heads, causing them to be unable to breathe. Now that immortals have been killed one after another, many cultivators could finally hold their heads high. Now, even if they saw immortals, they wouldn't feel as great pressure as before. Even if immortals stood in front of them, they would treat them calmly and not be as respectful and careful as before. After Murongyu slaughtered immortals, he became one of the two most powerful people in the cultivation world other than the Punishers. At this moment, Murongyu and Li Su had surpassed the Dragon Phoenix list and become the two most powerful people in the cultivation world. They suppressed little Peng King, Xue Chun, and even the older generation experts in one fell swoop. In fact, Murongyu even had the tendency to surpass Li Su as the number one person. After all, although Li Su had also killed an immortal, he was also seriously injured. After Murongyu killed Suda, although he was also injured, he wasn't seriously injured. You don't agree? If you don't agree, you can also go kill an immortal and see. If you can really kill an immortal, then you will also become one of the most powerful people in the cultivation world of Huaxia. But can you do it? Although some people didn't think much of Murongyu being called the most powerful person, when someone asked this question in return, they fell silent. Other than the Punishers, Li Su, and Murongyu, who else could kill an immortal? No, maybe in the future, but not now. After Murongyu killed the immortal, those in the cultivation world who had tried to kill Murongyu or those who had plotted against him took the opportunity to descend. Some of them didn't dare to continue finding trouble with Murongyu, and some of them just kept quiet for the time being. Even a menacing Zhu Xinzong and Tian Yinzong fell silent. We must not provoke Murongyu. Even if we encounter him, we must take a detour. The higher-ups of many sects and forces passed down this order. Now, Murongyu is so powerful that he could shake the cultivation world with a stomp of his foot. If those forces continued to cause trouble for Murongyu, they would only be destroyed by Murongyu. What should we do? Everything is on Murongyu, and that entity is watching us from the shadows. There's no way we can do anything to Murongyu. A dozen or so immortals were gathered together, their expressions bitter. They couldn't return to the immortal realm without completing their mission, and the Punishers were watching them from the shadows. They couldn't do anything to Murongyu. In other words, they would never be able to return to the immortal realm, unless Murongyu ascended to the immortal realm. However, if that happened, then even if they returned to the Black Civ sect, they would still be punished. After all, they hadn't completed their mission. I've already sent word back to the immortal realm and reported it to Patriarch Black Civ. That entity is powerful, but is he stronger than Patriarch Black Civ? I'm sure he'll give us instructions soon. The leader of the immortals muttered to himself. Immortal realm, Black Civ sect. Within the private chamber, Patriarch Black Civ was bowing respectfully to the side. In front of him was a hazy figure, whose back was facing him. Is Hichu Luoshu really in Huaxia's cultivation world? If that's the case, why haven't they taken it back? Patriarch Black Civ was even more respectful now. The cultivator who owns the Hichu Luoshu is strong, he said cautiously, but dealing with him is a trivial matter. However, the Punishers of Huaxia's cultivation world are interfering. Our people are no match for them. When he mentioned the Punishers, Patriarch Black Civ gnashed his teeth. If it weren't for him, even if there were 10 Murongyu, his people would have long since killed him and taken the Hichu Luoshu. It must be understood that the Hichu Luoshu was wanted by the entity in front of him. Patriarch Black Civ was simply following orders. If he couldn't complete his mission properly, and the entity in front of him became angry, then the Black Civ sect would come to an end. The Punishers of Huaxia's cultivation world? What gall! How dare they interfere with my business? Don't tell me they want to fight over the Hichu Luoshu with me? Don't overestimate yourself. The blurry figure was enraged, and a terrifying pressure erupted from him. Patriarch Black Civ was sweating profusely, and he bent even lower. At the same time, he backed away from the blurry figure. This blurry figure was actually the immortal emperor. In the world of immortals, only immortal emperors would dare refer to themselves as this emperor. For example, an immortal king would refer to himself as this king, or an immortal monarch would refer to himself as this lord. What a punisher, said the blurry figure, clearly enraged. If it were anyone else, given his power, he wouldn't even need to lift a finger. Countless experts would have killed them. However, the Punisher was no ordinary person. Wanting to kill him? It would be harder than destroying a superpower in the world of immortals. You could even say that it was impossible to kill a Punisher, unless the Punisher was no longer a Punisher. After all, Punishers were recognized by the local world. So long as they were still Punishers, they could call upon the power of that world. Unless they destroyed that world, the blurry figure's power could easily wipe out a cultivation world, but he didn't dare. If he dared to make a move, he was afraid that he would be killed before he could even make a move. No matter the cost, I must get the Hichu Luoshu. With a cold snort, the blurry figure began to fade away until he was gone. Patriarch Black Civ straightened his back. His face was devoid of respect, and his eyes flashed with a cold light. Fuck! Even you, the master of the Immortal Palace, can't deal with that Punisher. How could a mere golden immortal like me, a mere Black Civ sect, possibly be a match for him? You're just asking me to die. Patriarch Black Civ's heart was filled with regret. But if I can get the Hichu Luoshu, then I'll have access to the resources of the Immortal Palace. I'll have a chance to break through to the arcane immortal of the Nine Heavens, or even the Immortal King level. The Black Civ sect will become a third, second, or even stronger power. Although Patriarch Black Civ resented the master of the Immortal Palace for sending him to his death, he knew that this was an opportunity. If he did well, the Black Civ sect would grow even stronger. If he didn't, then the Black Civ sect will be destroyed. If I can latch onto the thighs of the Immortal Palace, then I'll go all out. After a long moment of consideration, Patriarch Black Civ made up his mind. I'm still not strong enough. In the Hichu Luoshu world, Muronyu sighed. Many days had passed since he'd killed immortal Suda. During that time, Muronyu had been absorbing every detail of his battle with Suda. Although his strength had improved, he still felt that he was far too weak. The gate of immortality was fully open, and terrifying amounts of immortal chi constantly poured into Muronyu's body, tempering it. Although his body was constantly being tempered, if he only relied on the immortal chi, he wouldn't be able to break through to the 4th rank. His strength had stagnated at the late metamorphosis stage, and he hadn't even reached the peak. Because of his body, Muronyu didn't even know if he was a half-immortal or not. Was the first step immortal or the half-step immortal? Half-immortal, first step immortal, and half-step immortal. These 3 realms weren't categorized in the traditional sense. Instead, they were categorized according to the degree to which one's body had transformed into an immortal body after the metamorphosis stage. Muronyu's body wouldn't transform into an immortal body, so he naturally wouldn't have these 3 realms. In that case, I'll have to wait until the metamorphosis stage to break through to the Sky Immortal realm. He could kill Sky Immortals during the metamorphosis stage. If he broke through to the Sky Immortal realm, killing them would be as easy as flipping his hand. But when would he be able to break through to the Sky Immortal realm? Could it be that he'd have to wait until the first stage of the chaotic celestial body reached the 2nd stage? If that's the case, then I'll focus on the chaotic celestial body record for the time being. But then again, it seems that after cultivating the chaotic celestial body record, I've never seriously practiced this mental cultivation method. Muronyu thought with some shame. Of course, the chaotic celestial body record was a very magical cultivation method. After Muronyu cultivated it, it automatically operated and there was no way for him to cultivate it deliberately. Otherwise, Muronyu would have been either adventuring or being hunted down all these years. How could he have the time to calm down and cultivate? Fortunately, the chaotic celestial body record could be cultivated automatically, so Muronyu's strength was constantly improving. A few more days passed, and Muronyu couldn't sit still anymore. After cultivating for so many days, there's no progress at all. Sitting still to cultivate is really the worst way to improve one's cultivation. Only fighting is the best way to improve one's cultivation. Muronyu sighed and left Hichu Luoshu. Come, let's go find some trouble. This time, Muronyu brought the large black dog and the fiery-eyed golden ape, and appeared in Chang and City aggressively. Then, they flew in the direction of Zushinzong. F***, I'm finally out. I was almost suffocated to death in that damn place. Also, you actually wasted an immortal's corpse. F***, that was delicious. After eating it, my strength will definitely skyrocket. The large black dog nagged endlessly as soon as he came out. What made him most unhappy was that Muronyu actually didn't bring the immortal's corpse back for him to eat. This made him nag Muronyu constantly. In the end, Muronyu was so annoyed that he directly confined the large black dog in an independent space in the Hichu Luoshu world. Chapter 332. All this time, Muronyu had displayed a lawless and fearless demeanor. Furthermore, he would seek revenge for the smallest grievance. He was a vengeful person. If someone treated him well, he would treat that person well. If someone did not treat him well, Muronyu would not treat them well either. Therefore, in the past 20 years, Muronyu had grown from a trash who could not cultivate to the number 1 person in Huaxia's cultivation world. In the process of his rise, his hands were stained with the blood of his enemies. Muronyu was cruel to his enemies. He did not want to let go of anyone who had offended him. This was especially true for the Void Sky sect. Back then, they wanted to kill him for something that didn't exist. If it weren't for the fact that he had the He-Tu and the Luo-Shu back then, he would have been killed by them. Muronyu had always suppressed this hatred in his heart. He had always wanted to kill Zushinzong. However, Zushinzong was one of the top 10 sects in the cultivation world after all. Their strength was not something he could touch. Therefore, He had always been looking for trouble with Zushenzong's disciples. Ma Tiansheng, the chief disciple Ma Tianyun, his protectors, some half-immortals, and first-step immortals had all died at Murong Yu's hands. As a result, the hatred between the two sides intensified. Both sides would not rest until one of them was dead. Zushenzong's half-immortal, Wang En, had attacked Murong Yu near the immortal ascension stage. This strengthened Murong Yu's desire to kill Zushenzong. Now, Murong Yu was strong enough to kill immortals. Zushenzong definitely did not have any immortals. Murong Yu knew that this was the time to kill Zushenzong. Now Murong Yu brought the fire-eyed golden ape and the big black dog to the void outside Zushenzong. Looking at the familiar Zushenzong in the mountains, Murong Yu's eyes flashed with killing intent. Once upon a time, this was his sect. When he had first entered the cultivation world, he had really thought of Zushenzong as his own sect. However, he had never thought that the people of this sect would be so disappointing. They had actually wanted to steal something that belonged to a foundation establishment stage disciple. After failing to do so, they had resorted to violence. If Murong Yu hadn't relied on the golden skeleton to kill so many elders and even destroyed one of Zhuang Ningguang's immortal tools, Murong Yu would have still been able to escape from the Void Sky sect's one-step immortal. A sect like this shouldn't exist in the cultivation world, Murong Yu indifferently said. Then, he turned to the large black dog and said, "Old Black, challenge them." Woof! The big black dog glared at Murong Yu angrily. He was very against Murong Yu calling him by his name. However, his protest was useless. After thinking about it, the name Old Black was better than the big black dog. The big black dog could only accept the name Old Black with tears in his eyes. Although the big black dog was unhappy with Murong Yu, he still took a few steps forward and looked down at Zushenzong arrogantly. He first coughed lightly to moisten his throat. Then, he howled like a ghost. "Zushenzong, your Lord Heavenly Dog is here. Come out obediently and accept your death. Otherwise, your Lord Heavenly Dog will not care about your lives today. I will start a massacre and wipe you all out from the cultivation world." As he spoke, the big black dog barked loudly. His arrogant appearance and arrogant words made even Murong Yu's fire-eyed golden ape want to kick him a few times. Where did this bastard come from? Damn bastard, how dare you insult Zushenzong? You are really seeking death. See if I don't kill you and make dog meat stew. Bastard, accept your death. The big black dog's words were really like a stone that caused thousands of waves. It instantly turned the calm Zushenzong upside down and surged like a stormy sea. While many Zushenzong disciples were shouting and cursing, there were already many disciples who soared into the sky and charged towards Murong Yu. "Woof, woof, woof. You bastards, why don't you kneel and greet your Lord Heavenly Dog? You actually dare to call me a bastard after seeing me, your ancestor. I am so angry." Although the big black dog was originally a bastard, being called a bastard by so many Zushenzong disciples still made him so angry that smoke came out of his nose. He stomped his hind legs in the air and turned into a black ray of light that charged up. The big black dog charged directly to the side of a Zushenzong disciple. Then he raised his dog paw and slapped it out. With a muffled bang, this Zushenzong disciple, who was only at the body integration stage, was instantly slapped into a cloud of blood mist. The big black dog was still angry, and his figure continued to jump in the air. Bang, bang, bang. Only a series of muffled sounds and clouds of blood mist could be heard. In just a few breaths of time, those Zushenzong disciples who had charged up were all slapped to death by the big black dog. Bastard, how vicious! Seeing how fierce the big black dog was, those Zushenzong disciples who wanted to charge over were instantly stunned and didn't dare to continue forward. Which bastard dares to cause trouble in Zushenzong? At this moment, an angry shout came from the depths of Zushenzong. Then, a large hand broke through the sky and reached down from the 9 heavens, grabbing directly at the big black dog. The big black dog snorted disdainfully and directly slapped at the large hand in the air with his paw without looking. Boom! The big black dog was as if he had been hit by a heavy blow, and his entire body was sent flying. In the end, He crashed heavily into a mountain below and shattered that mountain. Meanwhile, the huge hand that was slapping down from the void was shattered by the terrifying power. These bastards, seeing that the big black dog was causing trouble, and that the experts of Zushenzong still weren't willing to come out, Muronyu couldn't help but curse silently. Now in the cultivation world, who didn't know that Muronyu had the big black dog and the fire-eyed golden ape by his side? As long as they saw the big black dog who was arrogant and spoke arrogantly and vulgarly, it would definitely be the big black dog by Muronyu's side. In the entire cultivation world, there was only one of them and no one else. There was no reason for the people of Zushenzong not to know the big black dog's identity. However, since they knew that the big black dog had made a move, why didn't their higher-ups come out? Were they avoiding the battle? If they thought that if they didn't come out, Muronyu would leave, then they were gravely mistaken. Muronyu had already decided to destroy Zushenzong today. Even if the immortals came, they wouldn't be able to save them. Since they won't come out, then we'll beat them out. Muronyu sneered, and turned to look at the fire-eyed golden ape who was already itching for a fight. He said, "Beat those shameless old things out." Hearing this, the fire-eyed golden ape roared excitedly, and then soared into the air. In the air, the fire-eyed golden ape's body flashed with golden light, and the golden rod in his hand grew with the wind, instantly becoming as tall as a pillar supporting the heavens. The fire-eyed golden ape roared loudly, holding the golden rod with both hands, and smashed it toward the depths of Zushenzong. The depths of Zushenzong was where the foundation of Zushenzong was, and where the roots were. Zushenzong's older generation elites were all cultivating in seclusion there, and it could be said that the true elites of Zushenzong had gathered there. The golden rod that was like a pillar supporting the heavens was like a divine mountain, bringing with it a terrifying aura that could destroy the heavens and earth as it pressed down fiercely. The air was also crushed by the terrifying power contained in the golden rod. The golden rod had yet to strike down, but the terrifying pressure contained in it had already enveloped the entire Zushenzong. The terrifying pressure that was as vast as the ocean enveloped the hearts of all the disciples of Zushenzong. Under such pressure, some of the mountains in Zushenzong had already exploded into pieces. As for the ordinary disciples, they were forced to crawl on the ground by this pressure. They were already injured, and some of the weaker disciples had already exploded under this terrifying pressure. Why haven't those old farts made a move yet? Seeing the ordinary disciples being crushed and the sex elites not making a move, many of the disciples of Zushenzong were filled with resentment. The strong enemy had already arrived, and they still hadn't made a move. Was it because they didn't dare to make a move? Or did they simply not put these ordinary disciples in their eyes? Regardless of the reason, the upper echelons of Zushenzong had delayed making a move, and this had already caused many of the disciples of Zushenzong to feel resentment. In addition, Zushenzong's actions over the years, especially the expulsion of Muronyu from the sect, had caused these ordinary disciples to be even more disappointed. With all these reasons, many of the disciples of Zushenzong had already started to feel disappointed in Zushenzong. In other words, these disciples of Zushenzong were no longer as united as before, and there was already a rift between them and the sect. Even if Muronyu didn't destroy Zushenzong today, Zushenzong would still gradually decline. The golden staff smashed down rapidly, and the terrifying pressure had already shattered many mountains in the depths of Zushenzong. However, the elites of Zushenzong still hadn't made a move. Regarding this, Muronyu only sneered in his heart. It's best if you don't make a move. Just stand there and let the fire-eyed golden ape kill you. Otherwise, we'll have to go through a lot of trouble. Muronyu, how dare you cause trouble in Zushenzong? Do you think you're the best in the world just because you killed an immortal? A furious roar rang out from the depths of the Empty Sky sect. At the same time, a huge fist that was like a divine mountain suddenly soared into the sky and ruthlessly smashed onto the golden rod that was smashing down. It forcefully sent the golden rod flying. Even the fire-eyed golden ape was sent flying. Half-step immortal. The elites of Zushenzong had finally made a move. Muronyu took a step forward, his expression indifferent as he said in a cold voice, I don't know if I'm the best in the world, but Zushinzong will definitely be destroyed today. Are you going to dissolve your sect yourselves? Or do I have to do it myself? It really was Muronyu. Muronyu had finally come for revenge. He was a powerful existence that could even kill an immortal. Could Zushinzong really stop him? After hearing Muronyu's words, the hearts of many disciples of Zushinzong sank, as if a mountain had been tied to them. In an instant, most of the disciples of Zushinzong despaired, their faces ashen. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.